History is supposed to make sense. Timelines, progress, cause and effect. But what happens when an object surfaces that refuses to fit? An artifact that seems to know more than it should, or come from a time that shouldn't be capable of creating it. Buried in stone, locked in ancient tombs, or pulled from the depths of the earth, these discoveries challenge everything we think we know about the past. Were they mistakes, lost knowledge, or something far more unsettling? Tonight, we step into the evidence and the questions history still can't answer. Beneath the steady desert light of Egypt, among temples worn smooth by wind and time, lie stones that invite a second look. In museum storerooms and archaeological sites alike, blocks of granite and limestone bear precise circular holes, some shallow, others drilled deep into one of the hardest natural materials available to the ancient world. Their edges are clean, their paths are straight, and their presence quietly raises questions. Granite, in particular, is unforgiving. Even with modern tools, cutting into it requires hardened steel, industrial abrasives, and time. Yet many of these holes appear in granite blocks dating back more than 4,000 years, carved during Egypt's Old Kingdom. Some are narrow and uniform, others wider, sometimes showing faint spiral striations along their interior walls, as if the drill advanced steadily rather than chipping away randomly. Mainstream archaeology offers practical explanations. Ancient Egyptians were highly skilled engineers, with deep knowledge of stoneworking. Copper drills, combined with sand or crushed quartz as an abrasive, could slowly grind through hard stone. Experiments have shown that this method is feasible, though time-consuming. In this view, the drill holes are not anomalies but evidence of patience, organization, and craftsmanship on a massive scale. Labor was abundant. Time, measured in seasons rather than hours, was available, but some details remain difficult to fully reconcile. In certain examples, the depth of the hole seems disproportionate to its diameter, suggesting a level of stability and pressure control that would be challenging with soft copper tools. The regularity of the spiral marks, sometimes described as consistent pitch markings, has drawn attention from engineers and independent researchers. Could hand-powered drills, guided by human strength alone, maintain such uniformity? This is where speculation begins to enter the conversation. Fringe theories propose that the Egyptians may have had access to lost techniques or tools no longer known to us. Not necessarily advanced in a modern, industrial sense, but optimized in ways history has failed to preserve. Some suggest that stoneworking knowledge may have been inherited from earlier cultures, now erased by time, flood, or collapse. Others point to the possibility of mechanical aids, simple machines, weighted drill systems, or methods that left little archaeological trace. More controversial ideas push even further, hinting at technological leaps out of sequence or external influence. These interpretations are not supported by mainstream evidence, but they persist because the physical artifacts, the holes themselves, remain open to interpretation. The stones do not explain how they were made. They only show that they were. What complicates the matter is not just the holes, but where they appear. Some are found in unfinished blocks, others in functional architectural elements, suggesting they were part of routine construction, not isolated experiments. They appear in multiple locations, across different dynasties, implying that whatever method was used, it was known and repeatable. Yet no complete drills have survived. No diagrams remain. No texts describe the process in detail. What we have instead are outcomes, precise, deliberate, and silent. Standing before these stones, the mystery is not explosive or dramatic. It is quiet. It unfolds slowly, in measured circles carved into ancient rock. Were these holes simply the result of lost but ordinary ingenuity? Or do they hint at methods that history has not fully accounted for? For now, the drill holes remain where they are, unchanged, unanswered, waiting, suggesting that even in one of the most studied civilizations on Earth, there are still techniques we do not completely understand, and questions the stone has not yet finished asking. From stones shaped with quiet precision, we turn now to the sea, where mystery did not sit silently, but burned. The eastern Mediterranean, just before dawn. Low waves strike the hulls of wooden warships as they gather near the fortified walls of Constantinople. Lantern light flickers across shields and rigging. Then, from the Byzantine vessels, something unimaginable is unleashed. A jet of fire arcs across the water, refusing to die as it strikes the enemy ships. It crawls along the surface of the sea, clings to wood and flesh alike, and cannot be extinguished by water. Panic follows. Formation collapses. The sea itself appears to be on fire. This was Greek fire. Unlike the drill holes carved into stone, Greek fire was not subtle. It was immediate, terrifying, and decisive. Yet despite its dramatic impact on history, it shares something crucial with those ancient stones. We still do not fully understand how it worked. Greek fire entered the historical record in the 7th century CE, during a time when the Byzantine Empire faced existential threats from powerful naval enemies. According to chroniclers, the weapon was first deployed during the Arab siege of Constantinople, where it played a pivotal role in defending the city. What made it extraordinary was not simply its destructive power, but its delivery system. Greek fire was projected, sprayed, from siphon-like devices mounted on ships, creating what many later historians would describe as an early form of a flamethrower. Mainstream history offers cautious explanations. Most scholars agree that Greek fire was likely a petroleum-based mixture, possibly involving naphtha, resins, sulfur, or quicklime. These ingredients were known in the ancient world and capable of producing intense flames. Pressurized pumps, perhaps adapted from firefighting or irrigation technology, could theoretically project the burning substance outward. In this view, Greek fire represents a sophisticated but plausible synthesis of chemistry and engineering developed under the pressure of war. And yet, details complicate this explanation. The sources describe flames that could not be extinguished with water, only with sand, vinegar, or smothering. They describe projectors that functioned at sea, on moving ships, in wind and chaos. They describe a substance that ignited on contact, sometimes even before reaching its target. Most importantly, they describe a technology that remained exclusive to Byzantium for centuries, despite constant contact with enemies, allies, spies, and defectors. If Greek fire was merely a mixture of known ingredients, why was it never successfully replicated? The Byzantines guarded the secret relentlessly. Its formula was reportedly known only to a select few specialists, passed down within controlled circles. Even Byzantine historians avoided describing it in detail. When the empire eventually fell, the knowledge disappeared with it. Not gradually, but completely. No confirmed replicas emerged in the Islamic world, in medieval Europe, or later in the age of gunpowder. This absence fuels speculation. Some researchers suggest that the true innovation was not the fuel, but the delivery system. The siphons themselves, bronze tubes, pressure chambers, ignition mechanisms, may have been far more advanced than surviving descriptions suggest. The materials required to withstand heat, pressure, and corrosion at sea could point to metallurgical techniques that are poorly documented or lost. Others look to the reports of ignition itself. Certain fringe theories propose chemical reactions involving quicklime and water that could cause spontaneous combustion, though experimental reconstructions have struggled to reproduce the described effects reliably. Was there an ingredient that degraded over time, leaving no trace? Or a process dependent on precise ratios and conditions that written sources failed to capture? There are even more speculative ideas, spoken quietly rather than asserted. that Greek fire represented a technological peak that emerged briefly and vanished, not because it was impossible to recreate, but because the chain of knowledge required to sustain it was fragile. A single disruption, war, plague, political collapse, could erase it entirely. What remains especially striking is how modern the descriptions feel. Projected fire, controlled ignition, psychological warfare through spectacle. These are concepts more often associated with modern combat, yet they appear here, fully formed, more than a millennium ago. And still, no intact projector survives. No workshop has been identified with certainty. No manual explains its operation. As with the Egyptian drill holes, we are left to infer process from result, to reconstruct technology from its effects rather than its instructions. Standing at the shoreline today, it is difficult to imagine flames moving across water, driven by human hands and hidden knowledge. Yet, history insists that it happened. Ships burned. Sieges were broken. Empires endured. So the question lingers, was Greek fire the product of lost engineering brilliance, or something even more elusive, a convergence of chemistry, craftsmanship, and secrecy that history simply failed to preserve? Like the stones drilled with impossible precision, the weapon leaves behind not answers but traces, flickering reminders that the past may have held technologies we have yet to fully comprehend, waiting beneath the surface, much like the sea that once carried fire. As the echoes of fire fade from the sea, the mystery shifts inland, away from salt and smoke, toward high plateaus, river valleys, and texts preserved not in stone or metal, but in memory and verse. In the early morning light of the Indian subcontinent, temple towers rise through mist, their carvings layered with gods, animals, and celestial scenes. In ancient manuscripts, written in Sanskrit and passed down for centuries, the heavens are not distant or abstract. They are occupied, traversed, reached. Within these texts appears a word that has fueled fascination and debate for generations: Vimana. In its most basic sense, a Vimana is described as a vehicle, often a chariot, associated with gods and heroes. But some descriptions go far beyond symbolism. They speak of structures that move through the sky, travel vast distances, and operate independently of the earth below. In the epics of India, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, Vimanas are depicted as aerial conveyances capable of vertical ascent, hovering, and long-range flight. They shine, they roar, they move like the wind, and like a streak of fire across the sky. Mainstream scholarship approaches these passages with caution. Most historians and linguists interpret Vimanas as mythological constructs, poetic devices meant to elevate divine characters, not literal machines. Ancient cultures around the world imagined flight long before it was physically possible, and symbolic sky travel is a recurring theme in human storytelling. In this view, Vimanas belong to the same category as flying chariots, sun barges, or winged gods, expressions of aspiration, power, and the divine. Yet the texts themselves complicate this neat separation between myth and imagination. Certain passages describe Vimanas with mechanical specificity. They reference materials, components, and operational principles. One lesser-known Sanskrit text, the Vaimanika Shastra, details different types of Vimanas, their construction, metals used, sources of energy, and even pilot training. Though widely believed by scholars to be a 20th century compilation rather than an ancient manual, its existence raises questions about why such detailed technological language was framed within an ancient idiom at all. Other texts speak of aerial battles, weapons deployed from the sky, and cities destroyed by blinding light and intense heat. These descriptions are often metaphorical, but not always easily dismissed. They are vivid, consistent, and repeated across different narratives. This is where the discussion quietly shifts. Some researchers suggest that Vimanas may reflect distant cultural memories, perhaps exaggerated accounts of rare technologies, ritual platforms, or lost engineering knowledge. Others propose that they were symbolic representations of astronomical events, with the vehicles serving as metaphors for planets, comets, or celestial cycles observed with precision by ancient Indian astronomers. India's documented achievements in mathematics, metallurgy, and architecture lend weight to this broader context. The ancient world here was not technologically primitive. Iron pillars resistant to corrosion, precise urban planning at sites like Mohenjo-Daro, and advanced understanding of astronomy demonstrate a civilization capable of complex thought and long-term experimentation. Still, speculation lingers at the edges. Could Vimanas represent an early attempt to conceptualize flight based on observed principles, heat, wind, propulsion, long before the tools to realize it existed? Or do they hint at something more provocative, a technological episode now erased, remembered only through epic poetry? Fringe theories step further, suggesting that Vimanas were literal aircraft, advanced machines that predated recorded history, perhaps built by a forgotten civilization or inherited from an earlier age. These interpretations often point to similarities between Vimana descriptions and modern aerospace concepts: multi-tiered structures, energy sources, controlled movement in multiple directions. Critics argue that these parallels are retrofitted, reading modern ideas into ancient words. But the mystery persists not because of certainty, rather because of absence. There are no confirmed physical remains of Vimanas, no engines, no alloys, no ruins that can be conclusively tied to aerial technology. Like Greek fire, their alleged mechanisms have left no surviving hardware. What remains are texts, resilient, interpretive, and open-ended. Yet even texts are artifacts. They preserve not only belief, but curiosity. They show that ancient thinkers were asking questions about movement, power, and the sky itself. They imagined machines not as crude fantasies, but as complex systems governed by rules. Whether symbolic or literal, Vimanas occupy a space that feels unusually technical for pure myth. Standing beneath the open sky, it is easy to understand why flight captured the ancient imagination. The sun, the birds, the stars, all unreachable, yet constantly present. To describe vehicles that could bridge that gap was to assert that the universe was not closed, but navigable. So we are left with the same quiet uncertainty that follows so many of these discoveries. Were Vimanas nothing more than poetic expressions of divine power? Or do they preserve echoes of experimentation, innovation, or ideas far ahead of their time? Ideas that never fully materialized, or were lost before they could be anchored to history. As with the stones drilled too precisely, and the fire that burned upon the sea, the Vimanas remain suspended between explanation and wonder, hovering just beyond reach, inviting us to look upward and to ask whether the past still holds stories we have yet to fully understand. As our gaze lowers from imagined skies back to the ground beneath our feet, the mystery does not recede. Instead, it settles deeper, into the earth itself. In the heart of ancient China, within the ordered courtyards of the Han Dynasty capital, once stood an object unlike any other in the ancient world. It was large, imposing, and strangely elegant, a bronze vessel nearly 6 feet in diameter, encircled by sculpted dragon heads. Each dragon held a small metal ball in its mouth, poised above the open jaws of waiting toads below. To the casual observer, it may have appeared ceremonial, even symbolic. But this instrument was built for a purpose both practical and extraordinary: to listen to the movements of the earth. This was the ancient Chinese seismograph, attributed to the polymath scholar Zhang Heng in the 2nd century CE. Earthquakes were not unfamiliar to ancient China. They were frequent, devastating, and often distant, striking regions hundreds of miles away from the imperial court. In an age without rapid communication, such disasters could unfold unseen, delaying relief efforts and weakening central authority. The seismograph was designed to solve this problem, detecting earthquakes far beyond the reach of human senses. According to historical records, when seismic waves traveled through the ground, one of the dragon heads would release its ball, which would fall into the mouth of the corresponding toad below. The direction of the falling ball indicated the direction from which the earthquake originated. Notably, the device was said to respond even when no tremors were felt locally. This claim alone places the instrument in remarkable territory. Modern seismology relies on finely calibrated sensors, sensitive pendulums, and precise measurements of wave motion. Yet Zhang Heng's device, built nearly 2,000 years ago, appears to have operated on similar principles, detecting ground motion and translating it into directional information. The official histories recount an incident in which the seismograph indicated an earthquake to the west, despite no immediate signs in the capital. Days later, messengers arrived confirming that a major quake had indeed occurred in that direction. Mainstream historians accept that such a device existed. The written records are consistent, detailed, and preserved across multiple sources. Replicas constructed by modern engineers, based on textual descriptions, have demonstrated that a central pendulum or suspended mechanism could plausibly trigger a directional release system when disturbed by seismic waves. And yet, the original device has never been found. No intact seismograph survives. No diagrams drawn by Zhang Heng himself remain. What we have are descriptions, carefully worded, but incomplete. They describe what the device did, not precisely how it did it. This gap is where intrigue quietly takes hold. How sensitive was the mechanism? Could it truly distinguish distant earthquakes from local disturbances? How was false triggering avoided? The texts are silent on these details. They assume an understanding that no longer exists. Some reconstructions rely on a central inverted pendulum, delicately balanced to shift with seismic vibrations. Others propose a complex internal system of levers and channels, transferring motion to the dragon heads with surprising precision. Each model works in theory, but none can be confirmed. The craftsmanship implied by the device raises further questions. Casting a large bronze vessel with internal mechanical components would have required advanced metallurgical skill and precise calibration. The Han Dynasty was indeed capable of remarkable engineering feats. Water clocks, astronomical instruments, and complex gear systems are well documented. Still, combining sensitivity, durability, and directional accuracy in a single instrument pushes the limits of what is typically associated with ancient technology. Here, as with so many of these artifacts, speculation begins quietly, without spectacle. Some researchers wonder whether the seismograph was part of a broader tradition of geophysical observation, now largely lost. Ancient Chinese philosophy placed great emphasis on harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity. Subtle changes in the natural world were believed to carry meaning, signals of imbalance or transition. Could this worldview have driven a deeper exploration of Earth dynamics than we currently recognize? Others suggest that Zhang Heng's seismograph may represent a singular peak, an invention ahead of its time, unsupported by a broader technological ecosystem. Without continuous refinement or widespread adoption, such knowledge could easily fade, preserved only in texts that later generations struggled to interpret. More speculative voices ask whether the device's capabilities have been understated or misunderstood. If it could detect distant seismic activity reliably, what level of empirical testing must have preceded it? How many observations, failures, and adjustments were required to arrive at such a design? And where are the records of that process? As with Greek fire and Vimanas, secrecy and loss play a role. Political upheaval, dynastic change, and the fragility of material culture have erased countless tools and texts. Knowledge that is not continuously practiced does not merely disappear. It becomes invisible. Standing in a modern museum, before replicas that attempt to honor the original, it is difficult to escape a sense of restraint. The device does not announce itself as revolutionary. It does not boast complexity. It waits. It listens. Its genius, if we can call it that, lies in its quiet attentiveness to forces beyond human control. And perhaps that is what makes it unsettling. Because if ancient engineers could detect earthquakes they could not feel, if they could give shape and direction to invisible waves traveling through the planet, what other natural processes might they have studied with equal subtlety? What instruments might have existed that we no longer know how to recognize? The bronze dragons remain frozen in time, their mouths closed, their mechanisms silent. The earth still moves beneath us, as it always has. And somewhere between what was recorded and what was lost, the ancient Chinese seismograph continues to ask its question, not loudly but persistently. How much of the past's knowledge have we truly recovered, and how much is still waiting to be felt? From listening to the trembling earth, our journey rises again, from delicate mechanisms to something heavier, enduring and silent, yet equally defiant of time. The ground beneath us is no longer shifting, but stillness itself seems to bend around an artifact that has stood for centuries, refusing to succumb to the very elements it faces. In the heart of Delhi, within the sprawling complex of the Qutb Minar, rises a column of iron nearly 23 feet tall. Its surface glints faintly in the sunlight, darkened with age but remarkably intact. This is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, an object that has puzzled historians, metallurgists, and engineers for generations. Unlike bronze, copper, or stone, iron is prone to corrosion. Yet for over 1,600 years, this pillar has stood exposed to rain, humidity, and pollution without significant rust. Its endurance is extraordinary, almost inexplicable. The pillar is not merely remarkable for its survival. Inscriptions along its shaft indicate it was erected in honor of a king from the Gupta dynasty, possibly Chandragupta II, and likely transported from central India to Delhi centuries later. It was intended as a ceremonial marker, a symbol of imperial authority, and yet its physical characteristics hint at engineering knowledge far beyond the ceremonial. Its construction required iron of uniform quality, careful forging to prevent weak points, and a process that has left metallurgists scratching their heads. Modern science offers partial explanations. Studies of the pillar's composition reveal a surprisingly high phosphorus content, which some researchers believe contributes to a self-protective oxide layer, preventing rust. The iron was hammered and forged at high temperatures, combining many small pieces into one massive shaft. This method, known as forge welding, was possible in ancient India, but achieving such precision and purity in iron of this size remains daunting even by today's standards. The pillar is, in effect, a monument not only to political power, but to metallurgical skill. Yet the mystery runs deeper than composition alone. The pillar is incredibly resistant to corrosion without any protective coatings, paints, or oils. Its metallurgical properties suggest a level of experimentation and understanding that seems advanced for its time. How did the ancient smiths achieve this? How did they consistently produce such high-quality iron in an era without modern furnaces or chemical additives? Some scholars speculate that the techniques used to create the pillar were once widespread but later lost, leaving only this singular testament to a vanished craft. Others consider the possibility that the pillar's placement, forging method, and the local climate combined fortuitously, producing the perfect conditions for preservation, a remarkable but natural explanation. Yet the very notion that human hands could manipulate raw iron into such a monument, withstanding the centuries almost flawlessly, invites awe and speculation in equal measure. Fringe theories emerge quietly alongside these explanations. Some suggest the pillar may have been constructed using techniques now entirely forgotten, knowledge of iron manipulation that existed only briefly and disappeared with shifts in dynasties, labor practices, or trade routes. Others hint at more esoteric ideas, that ancient Indian artisans possessed secret methods of metal preservation, passed down through specialized guilds, deliberately kept from broader knowledge to protect their value. There is even a suggestion that the pillar was not forged alone, but perhaps assembled using unknown mechanical aids, or techniques that combined empirical chemistry with trial and error over generations. Whatever the method, the result remains undeniably impressive. The pillar stands almost 2 centuries before Columbus would sail to the Americas, 2 millennia before industrial steel production, yet it continues to challenge assumptions about what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. It is not merely a relic, it is a statement, a question in iron. Can human skill endure the passage of time? Visitors today often reach out, brushing their fingers across the cool metal, marveling at the weight and solidity of the pillar. There is a tactile sense of continuity, of hands that shaped iron millennia ago, hands that understood principles of metallurgy without instruments, equations, or modern chemistry. And yet, we know almost nothing about the labor, the planning, or the thought process that brought it into being. Even the pillar's surroundings invite speculation. It was relocated, likely from its original location, yet its integration into the Qutb Minar complex suggests a deliberate choice to preserve and honor the artifact. Was it revered simply as a historical object, or was there recognition that the craftsmanship itself held lessons, practical, symbolic, or even sacred, that the current generation of rulers wished to showcase? Standing before the iron pillar, one cannot escape a feeling that it speaks silently across the centuries. It challenges assumptions, not with words, but with persistence. It does not rust, it does not decay, it does not bow, and in its quiet resilience, it asks questions we have yet to answer. What did the ancient world know that we no longer do? How much skill, observation, and ingenuity has been lost to time? Could there have been techniques and knowledge deliberately forgotten, or simply forgotten by accident, leaving only this single, extraordinary testament behind? The iron pillar of Delhi endures as both monument and mystery. It is at once human and almost impossible, ordinary in its purpose, yet extraordinary in its execution. Like the seismograph that felt distant tremors, the Vimanas that may have reached the skies, and the stones drilled with impossible precision, this pillar reminds us that the past is rarely as simple as it appears. It holds secrets in plain sight, waiting patiently for those who care to ask. What else did our ancestors know, and how much of that knowledge has the centuries quietly claimed for themselves? As the iron pillar of Delhi stands resolute against time, our exploration moves further back, into a civilization that predates kings, empires, and monuments that dominate later histories. We travel now to the sprawling, sun-baked ruins of the Indus Valley, along the rivers that once cradled one of the world's earliest urban societies. Amid the carefully laid streets of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, archaeologists uncover small, enigmatic objects, intricately carved stones, rarely larger than a palm, bearing animals, geometric motifs, and inscriptions in a script that continues to elude definitive translation. These are the Indus Seals, hundreds, perhaps thousands, recovered from city ruins, warehouses, and trading centers across the Indus civilization. At first glance, they are utilitarian objects, stamps used to imprint clay or wax, likely in commerce or administration. Yet their craftsmanship is astonishing. Carved from steatite, a soft stone that hardens upon firing, each seal bears miniature reliefs of extraordinary detail: a unicorn-like creature with elegant horns, a tiger in mid-leap, a buffalo in precise profile. Surrounding these figures are short sequences of symbols, patterns of lines, hooks, and dots, arranged in ways that suggest language, code, or ritual significance. Mainstream archaeology generally interprets these seals as tools of trade and administration. The Indus civilization was remarkably organized, with cities featuring standardized weights, sophisticated drainage systems, and carefully planned streets. Seals may have functioned as markers of identity, property, or contractual agreements, providing a method of verification in long-distance trade. In this light, the seals are practical, impressive, and yet comprehensible. But it is the details that stir curiosity. The animals depicted are often fantastical or hybridized, creatures that cannot be matched directly with the known fauna of the region. Their proportions, postures, and symbolic arrangements suggest a symbolic literacy, a code layered with meaning beyond simple identification. And the script, despite decades of scholarship, remains undeciphered. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform, the Indus script offers no bilingual Rosetta Stone. Its brevity, uniformity, and limited corpus frustrate linguists and epigraphers alike. Were these seals conveying messages, religious invocations, administrative records, or something entirely different? Some suggest that the symbols encoded knowledge or cultural practices lost to history. Perhaps they preserved astronomical observations, instructions for rituals, or records of trade networks that stretched far beyond the Indus Valley. Others speculate that the seals served as a hybrid of art and communication, simultaneously functional and ceremonial, bridging the material and symbolic worlds. The crafting itself raises further intrigue, firing steatite to hardness, carving minute figures with remarkable precision, and creating repeated impressions that maintained clarity across multiple uses, all point to a sophisticated workshop culture. Artisans must have possessed advanced tools, steady hands, and a deep understanding of both material and function. Could such skill have emerged independently, or does it suggest a shared knowledge network spanning regions and generations, now largely lost? Fringe theories naturally emerge in the shadows of these mysteries. Some have suggested that the animals represent encoded knowledge of biology, genetics, or even lost species, an idea far beyond the understanding typically ascribed to Bronze Age societies. Others propose that the seals were talismanic or mystical, a physical interface with forces or concepts that have no modern analog. While these notions cannot be proven, they reflect the enduring impact of the objects. They provoke questions that ordinary explanations cannot fully resolve. Another layer of fascination lies in the context of discovery. Seals appear not only in urban centers but also in peripheral settlements, sometimes far from major trade routes, hinting at a widespread system of communication and authority. How did such a network function without a clearly understood writing system? And why, when the Indus civilization declined, did the knowledge encoded in these seals vanish entirely, leaving behind only the artifacts themselves? Handling a seal, one is struck by its duality, small, tangible, yet almost impossibly suggestive of something larger. It is a window into lives that were complex, organized, and yet now silent. These tiny stones, placed on clay or tucked into personal belongings, bear witness to a world that was at once meticulous, imaginative, and capable of abstraction in ways we are only beginning to appreciate. Standing amidst the ruins of Indus cities today, the seals provoke a quiet, persistent question. What were these people trying to preserve, convey, or protect? Were the symbols meant for everyone, or only for an initiated few? Do they encode knowledge we might recognize if only we could understand their language? Or are they reminders of a thought world that is irretrievably different from our own? Like the iron pillar that has resisted decay, the seismograph that sensed distant quakes, and the Vimanas that soared across mythic skies, the Indus Seals endure as artifacts of profound mystery. They are at once familiar and alien, practical and enigmatic, rooted in human hands yet pointing beyond the ordinary. They remind us that even in societies thousands of years old, complexity, ingenuity, and subtlety were thriving, and that the past still holds questions we have yet to answer, waiting silently in the objects that survived when everything else was lost. From the silent streets of the Indus Valley, where seals spoke in symbols we cannot fully read, our journey moves eastward and southward to a sun-baked plateau where the lines between life, technology, and ingenuity blur in the most personal of ways. Here, buried beneath layers of millennia, lies an artifact that is startling not for its size, but for its intimacy, an object that once looked into the world on behalf of a human eye. At the archaeological site of Shahr-e Sukhteh, or the Burnt City, in present-day southeastern Iran, excavations have uncovered a human skull with something remarkable, a carefully crafted prosthetic in place of the left eye. This is the Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye, dated to around 2800 to 2500 BCE. It is not merely a cosmetic replacement, but a testament to observation, skill, and perhaps an understanding of human anatomy that seems astonishing for the era. The eye itself is small, round, and made of bitumen, a naturally occurring resinous material, inlaid with a thin copper covering and painted with intricate detail. It was fitted into the eye socket with remarkable precision, suggesting not only aesthetic sensibility, but also mechanical awareness. The surface was even decorated with a central circle, evoking a pupil, giving the appearance of life when inserted. For an object this ancient, the craftsmanship is extraordinary. Every curve, every line, calibrated to match the human form it replaced. Mainstream archaeology frames this find as evidence of early medical and cosmetic innovation. The Burnt City was an advanced urban settlement with evidence of complex trade networks, pottery, and metallurgy. Prosthetic limbs or cosmetic replacements, in this context, may have been practical attempts to restore form or function to individuals injured in accidents, conflict, or disease. It is a compelling example of care and ingenuity. Someone, thousands of years ago, understood the importance of restoring appearance, possibly to facilitate social integration or personal dignity. Yet, the eye raises questions that stretch beyond the practical. How did artisans of that time create a device so anatomically precise? The socket of the skull and the shape of the eye correspond so well that it implies repeated measurement, careful experimentation, and perhaps even standardized techniques. Could there have been workshops dedicated to such craftsmanship? Was this knowledge shared across generations, or the specialized skill of a few practitioners? The material choices themselves are fascinating. Bitumen is lightweight and malleable, but durable, while copper provides rigidity and support. The combination indicates experimentation with composite materials, a sophisticated understanding of properties, long before metallurgy would achieve its later industrial forms. How much trial and error went into crafting such an eye? How many attempts were lost, unrecorded, before achieving a device that fits so seamlessly into the human skull? Speculation naturally enters this territory. Some scholars wonder whether the artificial eye might have served more than aesthetic purposes. Could it have had symbolic significance? Eyes have long held spiritual and protective meanings in human cultures. In ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley, representations of eyes appear in ritual and amulet forms. Did this prosthetic, while practical, also carry symbolic weight, restoring not just vision but social or spiritual balance to its wearer? Others suggest that the technological implications are more profound. Creating a prosthetic that fits, moves, and aligns with human anatomy hints at empirical observation, experimentation, and tactile engineering. Did artisans measure sockets, study ocular anatomy, or even observe living eyes in motion? If so, this pushes the sophistication of Bronze Age science and medicine into unexpected territory. The skull itself adds layers of intrigue. Dental wear, healed injuries, and signs of disease suggest that the individual lived for some time after receiving the artificial eye. This implies that the prosthetic was not merely ceremonial but functional, worn in daily life, integrated into movement, and perhaps even providing a limited capacity for vision or sensory compensation. The idea that a person could carry such innovation thousands of years ago in a society we often imagine as rudimentary challenges assumptions about what was technologically and medically possible in ancient urban centers. Fringe theories, whispered rather than fully embraced, consider the artificial eye as evidence of lost biomedical knowledge, a peak of anatomical understanding that vanished with the collapse of Shahr-e Sukhteh. Some speculate that it indicates experimental approaches to sensory augmentation long before recorded history, or even early attempts at prosthetic integration that would not be seen again until modern times. While these ideas are provocative, they underscore the mystery rather than providing answers. Here is an artifact that speaks eloquently of skill and observation, yet leaves the methods and intentions largely unknown. The Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye stands as a reminder that human ingenuity often emerges quietly, in small, personal ways, rather than in monuments or texts. It survived fire, decay, and millennia of burial to reach us, holding the imprint of a hand guided by knowledge, patience, and care. It asks us to reconsider assumptions about who could create and how early humans experimented with solutions to problems we often think of as modern. As we peer at this delicate object today, it is impossible not to reflect on the convergence of art, science, and empathy embedded in its creation. It represents a mind attentive to the human body, to aesthetics, to the social implications of injury and loss. And yet, it leaves us with questions that cannot be answered definitively. How many more devices, techniques, or understandings did civilizations like Shahr-e Sukhteh possess that are now irretrievably lost? What other innovations, invisible to the surviving record, might have existed in parallel with monumental achievements? Like the Indus Seals that encoded unknown knowledge, the iron pillar that resisted corrosion, and the seismograph that sensed distant quakes, the artificial eye is a quiet testament to human curiosity, skill, and foresight. It endures as both a practical solution and an enigma, a small but profound window into a mind reaching across the millennia to solve a very human problem. And in that enduring mystery, we are invited to wonder how much of the ancient world's ingenuity still lies hidden, waiting to be recognized, understood, or rediscovered. From the intimate innovation of the Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye, we travel now across oceans and centuries to the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, where another form of human ingenuity has quietly endured, the written word, preserved in fragile layers of bark and pigment, whispering stories of a civilization both brilliant and elusive. Here, among the stepped pyramids and stone plazas of the Maya, we encounter an artifact that challenges assumptions about literacy, knowledge, and the capacity of an ancient society to record its understanding of the cosmos. The Maya manuscripts. The Maya civilization, at its peak between 250 and 900 CE, was a landscape of cities, observatories, and ritual centers. Its people observed the heavens with astonishing precision, charting celestial movements, solar cycles, and lunar phases. Into this vibrant intellectual world were folded codices, folded books made of bark paper, coated with lime and inscribed with painstaking detail. Each page is alive with glyphs, pictographs, and diagrams, layered with meaning, a combination of mathematics, ritual, and history. Among the few surviving examples, the Dresden, Madrid, and Paris codices are records of astronomical events, calendrical calculations, and religious ceremonies. The precision is striking. Venus is tracked with near-modern accuracy, eclipses are predicted centuries in advance, and ceremonial cycles are recorded in meticulous detail. Scholars have marveled at the mathematical sophistication, particularly the Maya's use of zero, positional notation, and cyclical calculations. All executed centuries before such concepts were formalized in much of the rest of the world. The manuscripts are beautiful as well as functional. Figures are rendered with vivid color and dynamic movement. Kings, deities, and ritual participants are depicted in mid-gesture, communicating not merely events, but a sense of cosmological balance and social order. Every page is a multi-dimensional record, historical, astronomical, ritualistic, and symbolic, all integrated into a single narrative structure. Mainstream interpretation presents these codices as the apex of Maya literacy and intellectual culture, a written manifestation of a society capable of observing, recording, and predicting with remarkable clarity. They demonstrate that the Maya were not merely ritualistic, but deeply scientific, blending observation, numeracy, and symbolism in a way few other pre-modern societies could achieve. And yet, the manuscripts carry mysteries that remain unresolved. First is their scarcity. The majority of Maya codices were destroyed during the Spanish conquest, burned in religious zeal, leaving only a handful of surviving documents. What knowledge was lost? How many astronomical cycles, calendrical innovations, or historical narratives vanished forever, leaving only tantalizing gaps? The few codices we possess may represent the tip of an iceberg. What did the rest contain, and what might it tell us about technological or intellectual achievements that are now invisible? Even within the surviving codices, there are passages whose meaning continues to puzzle scholars. Some glyphs appear in combinations without clear linguistic analogues, or illustrate phenomena that seem anomalous or unexplained. Certain pages suggest knowledge of cyclical events on scales difficult to reconcile with human observation alone, raising questions about the methods employed to track them. Did the Maya achieve such precision purely through repeated observation over generations, or were their tools and techniques lost with the fall of the cities that facilitated these calculations? Fringe theories, whispered in the margins of academic debate, occasionally suggest more provocative possibilities. Could these manuscripts contain observations of celestial events not widely visible in the region, recorded through long-term pattern recognition, or even through instruments now lost to history? Some have speculated without evidence that advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or even geophysics may be encoded symbolically within the codices. While mainstream scholarship treats such ideas with caution, the very fact that these small books preserve cycles, patterns, and predictions that seem almost modern invites wonder. Equally mysterious is the physical composition of the codices themselves. Bark paper, thin and vulnerable to humidity, was coated with lime to create a writing surface, then inscribed with dyes made from natural pigments. The books were folded accordion style, allowing hundreds of pages to be carried compactly. For them to survive tropical climates for centuries is remarkable in itself, requiring careful storage, reverence, and perhaps a degree of luck that few artifacts achieve. Every surviving codex, therefore, is both a literary and a material miracle. The manuscripts also convey a worldview that remains difficult to fully grasp. Maya thinking integrated human action, ritual, and cosmic movement into a continuous, interdependent system. Kings were not merely political rulers, they were mediators of celestial cycles, participants in the rhythms of the universe. Every observation, every record, Every calculation in the codices is embedded in this holistic vision, where mathematics, ritual, and cosmology are inseparable. It is a perspective alien to modern compartmentalized thinking, yet astonishingly sophisticated. Standing before a reproduction of a codex today, one is struck by the layering of knowledge. Symbols that encode numbers, time, and ritual sit beside vivid illustrations of gods and priests. The precision is deliberate, the art intentional. And yet, as in all these artifacts we have explored, the seismograph, the Vimanas, the artificial eye, the Indus Seals, there is an essential incompleteness. The codices hint at what the Maya knew, but they withhold full comprehension. How did they achieve such astronomical accuracy? How much was observational? How much derived from symbolic or mathematical abstraction? And most hauntingly, what has been irretrievably lost, burned along with the libraries that once existed? The Maya manuscripts endure as fragile vessels of extraordinary knowledge, at once tangible, yet tantalizingly elusive. They are evidence that even ancient civilizations, often assumed to be simple or isolated, possessed methods of recording, analyzing, and predicting the world around them with sophistication that rivals much later societies. They remind us that human curiosity and ingenuity are timeless, appearing in forms that surprise and challenge us. And as we leaf through the pages of these small, fragile codices, we are left with a quiet, lingering question. How many other insights, inventions, or observations of the ancient world remain hidden, encoded in artifacts we have yet to find, or in knowledge destroyed before it could be preserved? Like the objects we have explored before, the eye, the pillar, the seals, the Maya manuscripts are an invitation to look closer, to wonder, and to imagine the possibilities still waiting to be discovered. From the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, where Maya manuscripts fold the heavens into human understanding, our gaze shifts even further back, over 4 millennia, to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, where civilization itself first rose from the confluence of river and soil. Here, in the cities of Sumer, we find artifacts that suggest an extraordinary sophistication, ancient star charts, etched in clay, recording the positions of celestial bodies with a precision that seems almost impossible for their time. The Sumerian civilization, flourishing around 3100 to 2000 BCE, left behind thousands of clay tablets, many inscribed with cuneiform writing. Among these, certain tablets stand apart: diagrams of the night sky, constellations marked with symbols, and planetary paths traced across carefully ruled surfaces. The diagrams are schematic, yet highly detailed, suggesting that the Sumerians did not simply observe the stars casually, they tracked them, recorded them, and interpreted their movements with systematic care. To see one of these tablets is to glimpse an ancient mind reaching outward, measuring the cosmos from a world defined by mud brick and reed. Some tablets mark the paths of Venus, which the Sumerians associated with the goddess Inanna, detailing its rising, setting, and cyclical appearances. Others depict constellations, some recognizable to modern astronomers, others whose identification remains uncertain. The geometry of the markings suggests not only observation, but an attempt at prediction, an effort to bring the heavens into the domain of human comprehension. Mainstream scholarship treats these tablets as evidence of the Sumerians' pioneering role in astronomy. They were among the first to recognize regularity in planetary motion, to develop numerical systems capable of tracking time, and to encode these observations in durable clay for posterity. Many cuneiform tablets appear to have functioned as star catalogs, calendars, or almanacs, blending myth, ritual, and empirical observation. In this context, Sumerian star charts are a natural extension of a society obsessed with order, cycles, and the interconnection between the heavens and the affairs of kings and cities. Yet the tablets carry enigmas that remain unresolved. Some diagrams suggest a degree of precision that seems astonishing without telescopic aid. Angular separations, alignments, and cyclical calculations imply observational methods capable of capturing subtle changes over years or decades. How did Sumerian astronomers measure positions of planets so accurately without optical instruments? How extensive was their observational network? Did temples and observatories function as centers for long-term data collection? The star charts also hint at knowledge that transcends basic calendrical needs. Certain patterns imply understanding of lunar cycles, eclipses, and even planetary conjunctions in ways that appear mathematically sophisticated. While it is tempting to attribute such accuracy to careful record-keeping over generations, there are subtleties in the charts that remain difficult to explain. Were the Sumerians merely recording what they saw, or were they also applying abstract models to predict celestial events? Fringe theories have long been drawn to these tablets, suggesting that the Sumerians may have possessed knowledge far beyond what conventional interpretations allow. Some point to the apparent alignment of certain constellations with distant celestial phenomena, speculating on observational tools or methods now lost to history. Others propose that the tablets preserve encoded knowledge of astronomical cycles that could hint at early forms of astrophysics. While such ideas remain speculative, the sheer sophistication of the charts makes one pause. Is it plausible that human observation alone could account for the consistency and detail recorded? Equally intriguing is the symbolic aspect of the charts. Stars and planets were inseparable from myth, ritual, and governance. Deities were mapped to celestial bodies. Kingship and cosmic cycles were entwined. The tablets thus functioned on multiple levels: practical, ceremonial, and predictive, an integration of empirical observation and cultural significance that challenges modern compartmentalized thinking. Could the blending of spiritual and scientific perspectives have contributed to the accuracy and preservation of these records? The materials themselves add another layer of fascination. The clay tablets were baked or sun-dried, durable enough to survive thousands of years, yet vulnerable to water, war, and decay. That these artifacts have endured is remarkable, and it underscores the fragility of our historical record. What other celestial insights, predictive methods, or observational techniques have been lost because their medium could not survive the passage of time? Handling or studying a Sumerian star chart, one is struck by the continuity of human curiosity. Thousands of years ago, scribes pressed styluses into clay to capture patterns they observed in the heavens. They were trying to understand cycles beyond immediate human perception, to bring order to the night sky, and perhaps to anticipate the future. Their work reflects meticulous observation, intellectual daring, and a desire to bridge the gap between mortal understanding and the vastness of the universe. Yet, as with every artifact we have explored in this series, the Indus Seals, the Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye, the Maya codices, the star charts also leave us with questions rather than answers. How many observations, calculations, and experiments preceded these final tablets? How did they integrate myth, ritual, and mathematics in a way that was both practical and culturally meaningful? And what techniques, methods, or instruments might have been lost when the Sumerian civilization declined, leaving only clay echoes behind? The ancient Sumerian star charts endure as both evidence of early scientific inquiry and a tantalizing mystery. They are at once practical, symbolic, and intellectually audacious, capturing a civilization's desire to measure, understand, and predict forces far beyond its reach. They remind us that curiosity and ingenuity are not modern inventions, but timeless human qualities, appearing in civilizations scattered across space and time. And as we study the faint impressions of wedge-shaped cuneiform marks and the meticulous diagrams of planets and constellations, we are left to wonder, how much did the Sumerians truly understand about the cosmos? How many secrets of observation, prediction, and knowledge have vanished into the dust of millennia? Like the artifacts before them, the star charts stand as silent witnesses to ingenuity we can glimpse but never fully comprehend, and they invite us to continue looking upward, asking questions that may forever remain just beyond our grasp. From the fragile Maya codices that mapped cycles of stars and gods, our exploration now turns to another mysterious object said to bridge human creativity and the unknown, an artifact whose story is as debated as the object itself. Known in fringe literature as the Lolladoff Plate, this alleged relic has captured attention not because of solid archaeological context, but because of the extraordinary narrative that has grown up around it. Imagine a stone disc, small, flat, and carved with spiraling patterns, figures, and symbols that seem to defy clear explanation. According to the tale that first brought the Lolladoff Plate into the public eye, it was acquired in 1945 by a Polish professor named Sergei Lolladoff in the hill town of Mussoorie in northern India. The object was said to have come from Nepal, attributed to a remote group sometimes called the Zopa, or Dropa, and was shown to an English scientist, sparking a purported expedition into the high mountains that followed. Descriptions of the artifact vary widely. Some accounts claim the carved spirals resemble a galaxy or cosmic swirl, with a central figure that has been interpreted, even in imaginative retellings, as resembling a humanoid form. Around it, proponents of the story have suggested shapes evocative of otherworldly beings and disc-shaped objects similar to modern depictions of flying saucers. In fringe discussions, these motifs have been taken as possible evidence of ancient contact with non-human intelligences or forgotten astronomical knowledge etched into stone long before conventional civilizations reached similar levels. Yet this is where the mystery and controversy intertwine. Unlike many artifacts in this series, objects that have documented archaeological contexts, museum catalog numbers, and peer-reviewed research, the Lolladoff Plate lacks verifiable provenance. There are no widely accepted museum records confirming its existence, no peer-reviewed publications detailing its discovery or analysis, and the individuals associated with the narrative cannot be independently verified. Critics of the story point out that the entire account first appeared in a 1978 book attributed to an Oxford ethnologist, but later revealed to be fictional. The so-called Dropa stones, of which the Lolladoff Plate is an offshoot in popular retellings, also trace back to dubious sources, and there is no archaeological consensus supporting their authenticity. Mainstream archaeology and history, grounded in documented evidence, understand that in the remote regions of the Himalayas and surrounding areas, there are indeed rich traditions of rock art, symbols, and ritual objects created by ancient peoples, but none that have been reliably dated to 12,000 years ago with spiral motifs representing extraterrestrial narratives. Genuine artistic and symbolic traditions in the region are interpreted within cultural and historical frameworks, not as evidence of alien visitation. So, why has the Lolladoff Plate stirred such fascination? One reason is the human impulse to fill gaps in knowledge with stories that appeal to wonder. When an object's origin is vague and its imagery ambiguous, interpretations can expand to include ideas that sit at the edges of conventional history. Spirals, humanoid figures, and disc-like shapes easily lend themselves to modern symbolic associations, whether cosmic, spiritual, or speculative in nature. Another factor is the relative inaccessibility of the regions allegedly connected to the story, the remote highlands between Nepal, Tibet, and northern India, where historic nomadic cultures, oral traditions, and ancient artifacts coexist in ways that are not yet fully catalogued by systematic archaeological projects. This lack of definitive records creates fertile ground for narratives that blend imagination with hints of the unexplained. But the deeper question lies not in the specific claims about the plate, but in what its story reveals about the boundaries of knowledge. What do we make of an artifact that appears in some narratives yet resists verification in any scientific context? Can an object be both a compelling symbol and a historical phantasm, simultaneously captivating and elusive? What responsibility do we bear when interpreting artifacts with scant evidence? Perhaps the true mystery of the Lolladoff Plate is not whether it records contact with the cosmos, but why such stories endure in the absence of concrete data. It invites us to reflect on the line between documented discovery and narrative invention, between what has been proven and what we wish were true. The artifact sits at the intersection of imagination and inquiry, a reminder that our fascination with the past is as much shaped by the stories we tell as by the objects we uncover. And so, as we consider the enigmatic Lolladoff Plate, whether it is an undocumented artifact lost to history, a conflation of myth and misattribution, or something in between, we return to the fundamental question that threads through every object we have explored in this series: how much of the deep past remains just out of reach, waiting for evidence that might one day change our understanding, or at least deepen the mystery that surrounds it. From the spiraling mysteries of the Lolladoff Plate, whose existence teeters between legend and speculation, our attention now turns westward, to a sun-baked desert plateau in California, where an object unearthed in the mid-20th century would challenge conventional ideas about history, technology, and the passage of time. This is the story of the Coso Artifact, an object as ordinary in appearance as it is extraordinary in the questions it raises. It was 1961 when a group of rock collectors, exploring the hills near Olancha, California, stumbled upon something unusual embedded in a chunk of hardened clay-like rock. At first glance, it seemed insignificant, a small metallic cylinder encased within the matrix of what appeared to be a geode. Yet, upon closer examination, the object did not fit comfortably within the natural geology. The outer layer was heavily mineralized, as though it had lain undisturbed for tens of thousands of years, yet the metallic core suggested the work of a human hand, or perhaps of an entirely different kind of intelligence. The cylinder itself, later described as a small spark plug-like object, featured precise metal components, fine wiring, and a delicate insulator, materials and engineering that some claimed should not have existed in prehistoric times. Early examinations noted its resemblance to modern spark plugs, yet dating of the surrounding concretion suggested an age of at least 500,000 years. How could a device so intricately manufactured appear in rock that seemed impossibly ancient? The contrast between apparent technological sophistication and geological antiquity would ignite debate, fascination, and speculation. Mainstream explanations have generally leaned toward a more prosaic interpretation. Experts argued that the artifact was likely a 1920s-era spark plug or a similar industrial component, accidentally encased in mineral deposits through natural concretion processes, a process in which minerals gradually form a hard outer shell over objects, sometimes producing startlingly ancient-looking results. From this perspective, the artifact's appearance is extraordinary, but its provenance is far less so, a modern object simply misinterpreted due to geological processes that obscure time and context. Yet the allure of the Coso artifact lies precisely in the tension between the mundane and the impossible. Even if one accepts the spark plug explanation, the circumstances of its discovery raise questions. How did such a relatively modern component become embedded in rock that appeared so old? Could mineralization occur with unusual speed under certain environmental conditions, or had the collectors misjudged the geological strata in which it was found? Could there have been unknown factors at play, forces or processes not fully understood, that accelerated the formation of the surrounding concretion? Fringe theories, as with many objects on our journey through history's anomalies, propose more dramatic possibilities. Some suggest the artifact is evidence of a highly advanced civilization long before humanity's recorded history, a civilization capable of creating complex metal devices that were lost to time. Others speculate that it may be an object from beyond our world, a technological remnant inadvertently preserved in desert sands. While these ideas remain unverified, the Coso Artifact continues to serve as a focal point for discussions about the limits of what is possible in both ancient human ingenuity and natural preservation. The material composition of the artifact itself is curious. The metal shows signs of precise shaping and machining, and the ceramic or porcelain insulator remains intact despite prolonged encasement. The interplay between the fragile inner components and the hardened exterior presents a puzzle. How could delicate structures survive mineralization processes that might crush or corrode less resilient objects? And what does this tell us about the preservation of human-made materials in extreme environmental conditions over long periods? The surrounding desert adds another layer to the mystery. California's high desert is a region where erosion, mineral deposition, and shifting soil layers interact in ways that can easily distort perceptions of time. Ancient volcanic activity, fluctuating water levels, and mineral-rich deposits create natural concretion that can harden around objects at rates difficult to predict. How many other artifacts have been misdated, misinterpreted, or overlooked entirely because geology disguised them as impossibly old or anomalous? The Coso Artifact also invites reflection on the human tendency to see patterns and meaning where evidence is sparse. Its unusual combination of technological detail and geological antiquity has inspired imagination, speculation, and sometimes controversy. Even skeptics admit that the artifact, regardless of its true origin, prompts questions about the interaction between human activity and natural processes, questions that remain relevant for archaeologists, geologists, and historians alike. And yet, despite decades of discussion, photographs, and analysis, the Coso Artifact retains its enigmatic presence. It is neither conclusively explained nor fully accepted as a genuine anomaly. The object sits at the intersection of human curiosity, natural processes, and the limits of knowledge, reminding us that history is rarely tidy and that even seemingly ordinary objects can provoke extraordinary questions. Standing before the artifact in imagination, one can sense the tension between certainty and mystery. It asks us to consider the possibilities of what once existed and what we may have yet to discover. Could it be a relic of a forgotten age of human ingenuity? Or is it simply a modern object misinterpreted, magnified by the illusions of geological time? The truth remains elusive. Like the artifacts we have explored before, the Maya codices, the Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye, the Sumerian star charts, the Coso Artifact endures as a reminder that the past is rarely fully knowable. Each object challenges assumptions, provokes inquiry, and invites wonder. And in its stubborn ambiguity, the Coso Artifact leaves us with a profound question. How much of our history, hidden or forgotten, might be waiting in plain sight, waiting for discovery, for recognition, or for the moment when evidence and imagination finally converge? From the arid deserts of California, where the Coso Artifact challenges the boundaries of time and technology, our journey now returns to the banks of the Nile, to an ancient temple where stone itself seems to whisper secrets from the distant past. Here, amid the well-worn reliefs of pharaohs and gods, one carving has captured the imagination of modern viewers, the Abydos helicopter, a series of overlapping images etched into the ceiling of the Temple of Seti-Wart at Abydos, Egypt. At first glance, these hieroglyphs appear ordinary, part of the grand tableau that celebrates pharaonic power and divine authority. But as the eye traces their contours, a peculiar pattern emerges. Layers of stone seem to reveal forms that resemble modern machinery, objects that evoke helicopters, submarines, even spacecraft. The carving is not a single image, but the result of multiple inscriptions overlaid in succession, creating what some describe as a palimpsest in stone, where the old and new merge into an uncanny composition. The temple itself dates to the 19th dynasty, around 1290 to 1279 BCE. Pharaoh Seti I commissioned its construction, adorning walls and ceilings with detailed depictions of gods, offerings, and hieroglyphic text. The craftsmanship is precise, each symbol carefully chiseled by artisans trained in a tradition that stretched back centuries. The fact that some of these hieroglyphs appear to form recognizable modern shapes is both startling and enigmatic. How could images so reminiscent of 20th century vehicles emerge in stone thousands of years before such technology existed? Mainstream Egyptology offers an explanation rooted in context and technique. The phenomenon is attributed to a combination of overlapping inscriptions, erosion, and the natural filling of chiseled spaces with mortar over time. Early hieroglyphs were carved, then later filled in or overwritten, producing optical illusions that the human eye interprets as familiar shapes. Shadows and wear accentuate these patterns, and the result can resemble modern forms purely by coincidence, a case of pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find familiar objects in ambiguous stimuli. Yet the allure of the Abydos carving is undeniable. The images invite questions about the interplay between perception, expectation, and history. Could the ancient Egyptians have had knowledge, lost to time, that inspired these forms? Were the artisans themselves aware of the striking shapes emerging from the overlapping layers? Or is the resemblance purely accidental? And if it is accidental, why does it provoke such immediate recognition, as if the stone itself is teasing us with glimpses of the impossible? Speculative theories abound. Fringe interpretations suggest that the carvings depict advanced vehicles or technology, preserved in symbolic form or delivered to humans by unknown visitors. Some claim the overlapping hieroglyphs represent a sophisticated understanding of flight, engineering, or even time travel, a notion more imaginative than evidential, yet compelling for those drawn to the idea that ancient civilizations may have glimpsed knowledge far beyond their era. Others propose the images are encoded messages, meant to communicate secret wisdom across generations, hidden within the public facade of religious art. The physical craftsmanship of the temple complicates the mystery further. The carvings were executed in limestone, a material both durable and workable. The hieroglyphs are deeply incised, precise, and remarkably preserved despite millennia of exposure. The layering effect, intentional or otherwise, adds depth and complexity. Overlapping symbols, some partially erased or recarved, create patterns that the human mind instinctively interprets in the language of modern machines. It is a reminder of how perception and context can shape our understanding of ancient objects, blurring the line between reality and interpretation. Equally intriguing is the cultural lens through which we view the carvings. Ancient Egyptian art was highly symbolic, with images often representing concepts rather than literal objects. Pharaohs, gods, and ritual implements could be stylized, abstracted, or combined to convey meaning beyond the visual. Could it be that what we interpret as a helicopter is instead a sophisticated layering of symbolic language, a metaphorical depiction of divine power, authority, or cosmic order? And if so, does our modern imagination impose anachronistic interpretations on forms created for entirely different purposes? The Abydos helicopter also raises questions about memory, preservation, and discovery. The temple survived centuries of neglect, erosion, and human interference, yet these images endure, capturing the imagination of viewers across generations. How many other hieroglyphs, sculptures, or reliefs contain patterns that might provoke similar speculation if examined with a modern eye? How much of ancient symbolism remains hidden in plain sight, waiting for perception and interpretation to unlock its secrets? As we contemplate the ceiling of Seti-I's temple, tracing the overlapping forms with a quiet curiosity, it becomes clear that the Abydos helicopter embodies more than mere speculation about technology. It is a testament to the durability of human expression, the interplay between intention and perception, and the mysteries that arise when history and imagination intersect. The carving challenges us to consider not only what the Egyptians knew, but how our own perspective shapes what we see in the relics of their civilization. The Abydos helicopter reminds us that history is rarely straightforward. Artifacts, inscriptions, and carvings are not static. They interact with the observers who encounter them, revealing patterns that may be intentional, coincidental, or somewhere in between. They invite inquiry, reflection, and imagination, while remaining stubbornly resistant to definitive interpretation. And so, as we look upward to the ancient stone ceiling, tracing the enigmatic forms that resemble machines yet belong to another era, we are left with a quiet, lingering question. What else did the artisans of Abydos encode in their stone? How much knowledge, observation, or symbolic wisdom lies hidden in the carvings of temples, waiting to be recognized, understood, or perhaps forever debated? In the interplay of shadow, chiseling, and perception, the mystery endures, and we are invited to wonder. From the stone ceilings of Abydos, where hieroglyphs suggest shapes that echo modern machines, our journey moves from the symbolic to the mechanical, into the world of human ingenuity expressed not in art or stone, but in gears, cogs, and precision engineering. Here we encounter the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced that it continues to astonish scientists, historians, and engineers nearly 2 millennia after its creation. Discovered in 1901 among the wreckage of a Roman-era ship off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, this artifact at first seemed like nothing more than a corroded lump of bronze. Hidden among other treasures, statues, coins, and pottery, the mechanism appeared unremarkable, a dark encrusted mass whose purpose was entirely opaque. It took decades of careful examination, including X-rays and computer modeling, to reveal its astonishing complexity. A network of interlocking gears, some no larger than a fingertip, designed with remarkable precision, capable of tracking celestial movements with uncanny accuracy. The mechanism consists of at least 30 intricate gears, arranged on multiple planes, with carefully calibrated teeth that allow for precise synchronization of cycles. It could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and perhaps even the planets. It tracked eclipses. It reproduced the irregularities of the lunar orbit with staggering sophistication. For a device constructed around the 1st century BCE, its technical mastery is unparalleled in the historical record. No comparable mechanical calculator appears again for more than 1,000 years during the medieval period. Mainstream research frames the Antikythera mechanism as a sophisticated astronomical calculator, likely designed to model the cycles of the heavens for calendrical, religious, or navigational purposes. It exemplifies the scientific brilliance of the Hellenistic world, a civilization capable of integrating observation, mathematics, and craftsmanship into a single portable device. The Greeks, after all, excelled in geometry, astronomy, and theoretical mechanics. The mechanism represents a tangible expression of these abstract ideas. Yet the artifact's sophistication also raises profound questions. How could a civilization more than 2,000 years ago construct such precise gearwork without the industrial tools and measuring equipment considered necessary for similar mechanisms in later centuries? The teeth of the gears are uniform, the ratios calculated with exacting care, and the overall system demonstrates an understanding of mathematical cycles that seems almost modern. Could this knowledge have been more widespread in the ancient world than surviving records suggest? Or was the mechanism a singular creation, a lone testament to ingenuity lost to time? Some have speculated that the device reflects knowledge that predates Hellenistic astronomy itself, an inheritance of earlier traditions, perhaps preserved and refined in secret workshops or transmitted through lost texts. The precise modeling of lunar irregularities, for example, implies extended observation and calculation over generations, far exceeding what a single craftsman might achieve alone. Could the Antikythera Mechanism be a surviving fragment of a broader technological tradition now vanished from history? Fringe interpretations occasionally suggest more extraordinary possibilities. Some propose that the device encodes information about astronomical events not readily observable with the naked eye, or even contains knowledge of cycles far longer than those recorded in surviving Greek texts. While there is no direct evidence for these claims, the very existence of such a complex instrument in the 1st century BCE forces a reevaluation of assumptions about technological development, the transmission of knowledge, and the limits of ancient science. The physicality of the mechanism itself is striking. Crafted from bronze, a material both malleable and durable, it was housed in a wooden case, now long decayed. Its small size belies the intellectual depth it embodies, a machine that translates abstract celestial patterns into tangible, measurable movement. Handling or imagining the mechanism evokes a sense of intimacy with the Hellenistic mind, a mind that could conceive of the heavens in terms of ratios, rotations, and predictability, then render that understanding into a physical object. The shipwreck context adds to the intrigue. How did such a delicate and valuable instrument come to rest at the bottom of the Aegean? Was it being transported to a wealthy patron, or part of a larger collection of knowledge that sailed through the Mediterranean? The mechanism's survival seems improbable, yet it persisted long enough to be discovered centuries later, crusted with corrosion but still legible to those who would unlock its secrets. Even now, as scientists model the device digitally, debate continues. Some gears remain missing, their precise function reconstructed only through educated inference. Some inscriptions are fragmentary, hinting at astronomical details that may never be fully understood. And yet, in every tooth, every rotation, there is a message about the capacity of humans to observe, abstract, and materialize knowledge, a bridge between the cosmos and the hands that shaped bronze millennia ago. The Antikythera Mechanism challenges the conventional timeline of technological history. It reminds us that complexity is not always linear, and that ingenuity can appear, vanish, and re-emerge in ways that defy expectation. Like the Abydos carvings, the Coso Artifact, or the Shahr-e Sukhteh artificial eye, it is a tangible manifestation of human curiosity and skill, yet it retains an air of enigma, a puzzle whose full story may never be known. And so, as we peer into the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism, turning its invisible cogs in our imagination, we are compelled to wonder what other devices, ideas, or knowledge might have existed in the ancient world, now lost to time, waiting silently to challenge our understanding? How much of human ingenuity remains buried, submerged, or forgotten, awaiting discovery to remind us that the past is far more complex and far more extraordinary than we often imagine? From the bronze gears of the Antikythera Mechanism, a testament to human ingenuity frozen in time, our journey now moves southward across continents and oceans to the cloud forests of northern Peru. Here, shrouded in mist and steep cliffs, dwell the enigmatic Chachapoya Sarcophagi, silent sentinels of a civilization that thrived in isolation, leaving behind burial practices and structures that continue to puzzle researchers and captivate the imagination. Perched precariously along cliff faces, these sarcophagi, also called purinmakus or carved coffins, are rectangular stone containers, often decorated with anthropomorphic or geometric motifs. Some measure nearly 2 meters in length, enough to hold the bodies of the deceased in a fetal or seated position. Others are barrel-shaped, rounded at the top, and adorned with sculpted faces that peer outward, as if keeping eternal watch over the valleys below. The Chachapoya, sometimes referred to as the Warriors of the Clouds, inhabited the Amazonas region from roughly 800 CE until the arrival of the Inca in the 15th century. Their settlements, often hidden high above the ground on sheer cliff faces, demonstrate a mastery of landscape and engineering that seems at odds with their isolated location. The placement of the sarcophagi is as striking as their construction. Carved directly from limestone or assembled from carefully fitted slabs, they are positioned in niches, caves, or on natural ledges that appear inaccessible without ropes or ladders. The effort required to transport, carve, and install these coffins is staggering, suggesting a society capable of not only remarkable craftsmanship, but also a sophisticated understanding of logistics and terrain. How did the Chachapoya achieve such feats without the use of draft animals or wheeled vehicles? What methods enabled them to scale vertical cliffs while carrying stones and delicate mummies? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Mainstream archaeology interprets the sarcophagi as integral to the Chachapoya's burial and ritual practices. The positioning along cliffs may have served multiple purposes: protection from looters, proximity to the heavens, or symbolic alignment with the surrounding landscape. The bodies themselves were often mummified, wrapped in textiles, and accompanied by funerary objects, indicating a complex ritual culture that honored the dead while embedding them within a cosmological framework. Yet even within these conventional interpretations, mysteries persist. Some sarcophagi are adorned with human-like faces that defy naturalistic representation, their expressions enigmatic, their proportions unusual. Others feature geometric designs whose meaning remains obscure. Were these merely artistic conventions, or did they encode information about the deceased, their lineage, or celestial phenomena? And what of the orientation of the sarcophagi, often facing east or west, sometimes aligned with specific landmarks or solstices? Such details hint at astronomical or ritual knowledge that modern observers are only beginning to grasp. Speculative theories surrounding the Chachapoya sarcophagi often focus on the civilization's apparent isolation and technical skill. Some suggest that their mastery of cliffside architecture, combined with their burial practices, may reflect an advanced understanding of mechanics, leverage, and structural engineering lost to time. Others propose that the sculpted faces on the coffins suggest symbolic or even esoteric knowledge, perhaps related to shamanic practices or an intricate belief system that tied the living and the dead, the earthly and the divine, into a single continuum. While these ideas remain speculative, the visual and spatial sophistication of the sarcophagi undeniably challenges simplistic notions of pre-Columbian culture in remote regions. The durability of these stone coffins is also noteworthy. Despite centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and seismic activity, many sarcophagi remain remarkably intact. Inside, skeletal remains and occasional textiles have survived in varying states of preservation, giving glimpses into the people themselves, their health, diet, and funerary customs. The combination of preservation and inaccessibility has limited archaeological study, creating an air of mystery around the human stories that these coffins contain. How much more might we learn if every cliff-face tomb could be carefully examined and documented? The Chachapoya sarcophagi also invite reflection on human ingenuity and the capacity to adapt to extreme environments. The civilization thrived in one of the most challenging landscapes in South America: cloud forests with steep slopes, dense vegetation, and unpredictable weather. Yet they carved homes into cliffs, constructed massive stone fortresses such as Cuelap, and created burial systems that required extraordinary logistical planning. Could these practices indicate knowledge of engineering and risk management far beyond what we typically attribute to societies in isolation? Even today, visitors to the region describe a haunting sense of presence when viewing the sarcophagi. From a distance, the cliffside coffins resemble silent sentinels, watching over valleys blanketed in mist. Up close, the sculpted faces and carefully crafted lids suggest a culture that valued both the practical and the symbolic, the physical and the spiritual. It is a civilization whose ingenuity is tangible in stone, yet whose full cultural context remains largely hidden from view. And so, as we trace the contours of the Chachapoya Sarcophagi, suspended high above the forest floor, we are reminded of the persistence of human curiosity and creativity across time and geography. These artifacts challenge our assumptions about what isolated civilizations could achieve and invite us to ponder the knowledge that may be buried, waiting for discovery, just out of reach. The cliffside tombs of the Chachapoya endure as both historical record and enigmatic puzzle. They speak of ritual, reverence, and technical skill, and yet, like the artifacts before them, they leave questions unanswered. How did the Chachapoya perfect such precise construction in extreme terrain? What symbolic or cosmic knowledge did the carvings and orientations encode? And what other remnants of their ingenuity remain hidden in the clouds, waiting to reveal themselves? In the interplay of stone, sky, and human endeavor, the mystery remains alive, inviting us to look closer, wonder, and imagine. From the misty cliffs of the Chachapoya, where sarcophagi cling precariously to sheer rock faces, our journey continues along the Andean corridor, further south into the arid deserts of southern Peru. Here, the landscape opens into vast plains etched with geometric lines and colossal figures, the Nazca Desert, a region already celebrated for its mysterious geoglyphs. Yet, beyond the ancient lines that stretch across the earth, a new enigma has emerged. The Nazca mummy figures, humanoid remains that challenge conventional understanding of human anatomy, ancient funerary practices, and the very limits of what we accept as possible. Discovered in remote burial caves and tombs of the Nazca region, these figures are immediately arresting. Unlike typical human mummies, they often exhibit elongated skulls, three-fingered hands, and torsos that are narrower and more streamlined than conventional human anatomy. The preservation is striking. Desiccated tissue, hair, and remnants of clothing or wrappings have survived centuries of arid desert conditions, allowing for detailed study. Radiocarbon dating places some of these remains within the historical Nazca period, roughly 100 BCE to 800 CE, aligning them with the culture responsible for the famous Nazca lines. Mainstream science approaches these figures cautiously. Cranial elongation, it is noted, can result from deliberate cranial binding, a practice documented in multiple cultures worldwide, including the Nazca themselves. Variations in limb proportions can sometimes be explained by mummification techniques, genetic anomalies, or post-mortem deformation. Yet many of the figures push the boundaries of these explanations. The hands, often with 3 fingers, and the skulls, in some cases dramatically longer than typical cranial modification would produce, raise questions that conventional models struggle to answer. Could these traits be the result of a previously unrecognized population variation, or is there something more enigmatic at play? The preservation methods observed in the Nazca mummy figures are also noteworthy. The desert environment, with its extreme dryness and stable temperatures, undoubtedly contributed to the mummification process. Yet some of the chemical composition in the tissues and wrappings appears unusual. Some analyses have suggested the use of resins or other substances to stabilize tissue, reminiscent of practices observed in Andean cultures but applied with an attention to longevity that seems exceptionally sophisticated. Could the Nazca have possessed techniques for preservation that surpassed what we currently understand of pre-Columbian mortuary science? Speculative theories surrounding these figures are as dramatic as their appearance. Fringe interpretations propose that the elongated skulls and unusual limb structures indicate contact with non-human intelligence, or that these remains represent hybrid beings, part human, part unknown entity. Others suggest the figures could be evidence of a forgotten lineage, a population with unique anatomical traits that has left few traces in the archaeological record. While these hypotheses remain unproven, the anatomical anomalies are compelling enough to merit careful investigation. Beyond their physical peculiarities, the context of their discovery adds layers of intrigue. Many of the mummies were found in remote cave systems, hidden from easy access, suggesting that the Nazca, or whoever prepared these burials, intentionally secluded these individuals. Some tombs contained accompanying artifacts, including textiles, ceremonial objects, and symbolic carvings, raising questions about their social or ritual significance. Were these beings revered, feared, or simply part of a population whose differences set them apart? Another dimension of mystery lies in the alignment of these burial sites relative to the surrounding landscape. The Nazca were renowned for their geoglyphs, massive lines and figures visible only from above. Could the positioning of these tombs relate to astronomical or ritual patterns? Do they, like the Nazca lines themselves, encode knowledge about the cosmos, spiritual beliefs, or territorial markers? If so, what does that suggest about the understanding and sophistication of the people who created and interred these figures? Scientific scrutiny continues, particularly through DNA analysis, carbon dating, and forensic examination. Preliminary results suggest human DNA, but some sequences appear atypical, warranting further research to determine whether these anomalies are due to degradation, contamination, or true genetic divergence. The anatomical differences remain a topic of debate within the academic community, reflecting a broader tension between the limits of current knowledge and the tantalizing hints that ancient populations may have been more diverse than previously assumed. The Nazca mummy figures compel us to confront questions about identity, biology, and culture. They illustrate how much of the past remains hidden, preserved in fragile tissue, desert sands, and the memory of stones and caves. Each elongated skull, each three-fingered hand, evokes a narrative that is simultaneously human and unfamiliar, prompting us to consider how we define normalcy, difference, and the boundaries of possibility. As we examine these enigmatic figures, their dry, desolate resting places, and the meticulous care with which they were prepared, we are drawn into a profound contemplation of the unknown. They challenge our assumptions about ancient cultures, the limits of technology and biology, and the mysteries that may yet lie buried beneath deserts, mountains, and forgotten caves. The Nazca mummy figures, like the artifacts that preceded them in this exploration, from the Chachapoya Sarcophagi to the Antikythera Mechanism, exist at the intersection of science, history, and wonder. They speak of human, or perhaps more than human, complexity that refuses simple categorization. And as we peer into their faces, measure the contours of their skulls, and trace the lines of their hands, we are left with a quiet, enduring question. What other mysteries does the Nazca Desert hold, waiting silently to challenge our understanding of life, culture, and the boundaries of the ancient world? From the enigmatic Nazca mummy figures, whose unusual anatomy and mysterious preservation provoke questions about human diversity and the limits of ancient mortuary practices, our exploration now shifts from the tangible remains of flesh and bone to an artifact of an entirely different order, one that intersects biology, knowledge, and the human imagination. This is the story of the genetic disk, a small object that, despite its size, carries implications that ripple across science, history, and speculation. The genetic disk is described as a compact circular object, often no larger than a palm, composed of an unknown metallic or crystalline alloy. Its surface is etched with patterns that resemble both molecular diagrams and abstract symbols. Proponents of its discovery claim that the disk encodes information akin to genetic instructions, functioning in some way as a blueprint for life itself. The artifact was reportedly found in remote caves or underground deposits, often in conjunction with other anomalous objects, suggesting it belonged to a context far removed from conventional human history. Mainstream scientists, however, approach the genetic disk with caution. There is no verified archaeological provenance, no peer-reviewed publication confirming its authenticity, and much of the story rests on anecdotal accounts. Yet even skeptics are compelled to acknowledge the intrigue it generates. Etched symbols that resemble DNA helices, molecular chains, and chromosomal structures appear on a material that seems far older than our current understanding of genetics. The precision of the patterns, combined with the apparent antiquity of the object, evokes a profound tension between what is scientifically plausible and what is visually or conceptually suggested. The disk itself is often described as exhibiting characteristics that defy conventional analysis. Some reports suggest the patterns are three-dimensional at a microscopic level, with grooves and ridges that interact with light in unusual ways. Others claim that when scanned with modern imaging equipment, the markings reveal additional layers of information, almost like a biological database compressed into a single enduring object. Could a culture in the distant past have conceptualized life at this microscopic level? Or is the disk an artifact of modern fabrication misattributed to antiquity? The questions persist, resisting easy answers. Speculative interpretations abound. Fringe theories suggest that the genetic disk could be a relic from a civilization with advanced knowledge of biology, capable of encoding the mechanisms of life into durable materials. Some even propose extraterrestrial involvement, positing that the disk contains a universal blueprint of life shared with humanity at some ancient point. While these ideas are far from verified, the disk's design and apparent purpose invite contemplation of knowledge and technology that transcends conventional archaeological understanding. The broader implications of the genetic disk are equally compelling. If genuine, it challenges fundamental assumptions about the timeline of scientific knowledge, the capacities of ancient societies, and the transmission of information across generations. It raises questions about whether human understanding of genetics, or life itself, might be only a fraction of a much older, lost tradition of study and preservation. Could there have been cultures that observed natural processes, recorded them, and encoded their insights into physical objects, long before the discovery of DNA and molecular biology in the modern era? The materiality of the disk adds another layer to the mystery. Its composition appears resistant to corrosion, degradation, or environmental damage, suggesting either an extraordinarily advanced metallurgical process or an origin beyond the materials technology of known ancient civilizations. The durability of the object has allowed it to survive centuries, or potentially millennia, in harsh conditions, preserving both its structure and the information etched upon it. In this way, it functions as both a physical artifact and a vessel of abstract knowledge, bridging the material and conceptual worlds. Yet, for all its fascination, the genetic disk also embodies the limits of certainty. Without a confirmed context, the claims surrounding it remain speculative. Even careful imaging and analysis cannot definitively answer the most pressing question: who created it and for what purpose? Was it a scientific instrument, a symbolic artifact, a teaching tool, or something else entirely? The disk challenges the boundaries between what is known, what is hypothesized, and what remains unknowable, inviting us to consider the ways in which knowledge can be encoded, preserved, and hidden across time. The story of the genetic disk resonates with many other enigmatic artifacts we have explored in this journey. The Antikythera Mechanism, with its intricate gears predicting celestial movements, the Chachapoya Sarcophagi, perched high above the valleys, and the Nazca mummy figures, whose anatomy defies expectations. In each case, human, or perhaps more than human, ingenuity interacts with mystery, prompting questions about technology, biology, and understanding that stretch beyond the historical record. The disk also prompts reflection on our own place within the continuum of discovery. If such an object truly encodes biological knowledge far beyond its apparent age, what does this suggest about the limits of human potential? How much might we be overlooking in the archaeological record, constrained by our assumptions about the capabilities of ancient peoples? Could there exist a lineage of knowledge preserved in objects like the genetic disk that awaits careful observation, interpretation, and perhaps even comprehension? And so, as we examine the delicate grooves and mysterious inscriptions on the genetic disk, we are invited to consider not only the artifact itself, but the questions it provokes about life, history, and intelligence. It stands as a silent messenger from an uncertain past, a reminder that some of the most profound discoveries are not those that yield immediate answers, but those that open doors to deeper inquiry. In the end, the genetic disk remains a testament to human curiosity, imagination, and the enduring allure of the unknown. Whether it represents a lost scientific tradition, a symbolic record, or something even stranger, it challenges us to look beyond what is familiar, to question the limits of our understanding, and to wonder what other fragments of ancient knowledge might still lie hidden, waiting for the moment when they can finally reveal their secrets. From the genetic disk, a compact vessel of potential knowledge bridging biology, mathematics, and mystery, our exploration now turns northward, across deserts and mountains to the Levant, where stone itself reaches a scale that seems almost unimaginable. In the ancient city of Baalbek, Lebanon, lie the remains of colossal stone blocks, some of the largest ever moved and positioned by human hands. Among them are the famed Baalbek Trilithon, 3 monoliths weighing hundreds of tons each, which continue to puzzle engineers, archaeologists, and historians alike. Set within the foundations of what would later become the Roman Temple of Jupiter, the Trilithon is composed of enormous limestone blocks, each measuring approximately 19 meters long, 4.3 meters high, and 3.6 meters wide, with individual weights estimated between 750 and 1,000 tons. To stand before them is to confront the audacity of ancient engineering, perfectly squared, meticulously aligned, and yet impossibly large when compared to the lifting and transport capabilities of civilizations traditionally credited with their construction. The surrounding quarry holds even larger stones, including the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, which dwarfs the Trilithon blocks at an estimated 1,200 tons. The scale alone raises immediate questions. How could pre-modern societies extract, transport, and position such massive stones with precision? The terrain is not forgiving. The Baalbek Plateau is uneven, and the stones had to be moved from the quarries several kilometers away, then lifted into place in a structure of ceremonial and religious significance. The engineering challenge seems almost insurmountable, even by today's standards. Mainstream archaeology situates the construction within the context of Roman expansion. It is suggested that Roman engineers, known for their skill with arches, concrete, and hydraulic machinery, may have designed complex systems of levers, ramps, and manpower to achieve the placement of these enormous stones. Indeed, the Romans were adept at monumental construction. Yet no contemporaneous records, inscriptions, or technical diagrams survive to explain the precise methods used at Baalbek. How were the blocks cut so precisely? How were they maneuvered without modern cranes or vehicles capable of carrying such weight? Speculative interpretations are equally compelling, Fringe theories suggest that the Trilithon could represent knowledge lost to time, ancient technologies or techniques that allowed for manipulation of stone far beyond what conventional engineering would allow. Some posit the use of advanced mechanical principles, anti-gravity methods, or even unknown materials that facilitated lifting and placement. Others see the precision and scale as evidence of a sophisticated civilization predating the Romans, whose achievements were later incorporated into the monumental complex. While these ideas remain unverified, they underscore the enduring awe inspired by the site. The Baalbek Trilithon also fascinates because of its alignment and context. The stones form part of a larger platform, a foundation so perfectly level that it continues to challenge modern engineers. Some scholars suggest that the platform's precision served ritual or astronomical purposes, linking human activity to celestial events. Could the careful orientation and alignment hint at an understanding of geometry, astronomy, or sacred space far more advanced than previously assumed? Or was it simply a testament to the meticulous planning and ambition of the Romans? Equally remarkable is the quality of the stonework itself. Despite the immense weight of the blocks, they fit together with astonishing precision, with gaps often measuring less than a centimeter. The sheer effort required to quarry, dress, and position them suggests a labor force of thousands, working over decades or even centuries. Yet no definitive records survive of the methods employed, leaving a profound gap between what we can observe today and what we can confidently explain. How much of human ingenuity is simply unrecorded, hidden in labor, observation, and tradition? The context of Baalbek adds another layer of intrigue. The site itself has been used and modified by successive civilizations: the Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, and later Arab and Ottoman powers. Each layer contributes to the complex story of human ambition and adaptation, yet the Trilithon predates much of the visible architecture, hinting at a knowledge base that may be older than our historical frameworks allow. Could it be that we are seeing not merely Roman construction, but the integration of even older traditions of monumental building, lost to time? The physical presence of the Trilithon is both humbling and disorienting. To walk among the stones is to experience the interplay of scale, precision, and permanence. The effort required to move even one of these blocks challenges the imagination. The alignment and craftsmanship suggest intention, planning, and knowledge encoded in stone. In their silent enormity, the Trilithons confront us with the limits of what we assume was possible in antiquity. And yet, like so many artifacts in this series, from the Antikythera Mechanism to the Nazca mummy figures, from the genetic disc to the Chachapoya Sarcophagi, the Baalbek Trilithon also reminds us of what remains hidden. The stones themselves are evidence, but the methods, the labor, the knowledge, and perhaps the lost technologies that enabled their creation remain largely inaccessible. How much of human history has been obscured by the sheer passage of time? What other monuments, methods, or knowledge lie buried beneath later constructions, awaiting discovery and interpretation? Standing before these colossal stones, one is forced to confront a humbling question. If human hands alone placed them, how did they achieve such precision, scale, and permanence without leaving detailed records? And if some form of knowledge or technology has been lost, what might it tell us about the civilizations that came before, and the potential of humanity itself? The Baalbek Trilithon endures not only as a feat of engineering, but as a silent enigma, a reminder that even the most monumental achievements can be both familiar and inexplicably mysterious. It challenges us to examine assumptions, to marvel at human ambition, and to recognize that the past may hold secrets far beyond what the historical record currently allows. And so, as we step back and look upward at these ancient giants, we are left with the enduring question: what else does the earth preserve in stone, waiting to astonish us, challenge us, and deepen the mystery of our collective past? From the colossal stones of Baalbek, whose sheer scale and precision challenge the limits of imagination, our journey now moves across oceans and centuries to the frigid forests and plains of the American Midwest. Here, amid the rolling landscape of Minnesota, lies an artifact that has fueled debate, speculation, and wonder for over a century: the Kensington Runestone. Unlike the massive stones of Lebanon, this discovery is modest in size, yet it carries questions about history, exploration, and human presence that resonate far beyond its 202-kilogram granite form. It was 1898 when Swedish immigrant farmer Olof Oman uncovered the stone while clearing land near Kensington, Minnesota. The slab, roughly 3 feet tall, was covered in runic inscriptions, symbols associated with medieval Norse culture. According to the translation, the text describes an expedition of Scandinavian explorers into the interior of North America in 1362, long before Columbus or the more widely recognized European explorations. The notion that Vikings, or Norse travelers, could have ventured so far inland has captivated historians, linguists, and enthusiasts alike. The inscriptions themselves are precise, carved with care into the granite surface. The runes are arranged in a manner consistent with medieval Scandinavian writing, yet they include peculiarities, unusual characters, spellings that do not correspond neatly to any known dialect, and phrasing that suggests either linguistic evolution or local adaptation. To the untrained eye, it is an elegant cryptic artifact. To scholars, it is a puzzle that defies easy categorization. How could a stone-bearing runic text endure for centuries in a region prone to glacial activity, shifting soils, and extreme weather? Mainstream archaeology has largely approached the Kensington Runestone with skepticism. Critics argue that linguistic anomalies suggest a modern forgery, potentially crafted in the late 19th century by Scandinavian settlers familiar with runic writing. Some point to the lack of corroborating evidence, other Norse artifacts, settlements, or graves in the area, as a reason to doubt its authenticity. Moreover, the stone's sudden appearance on a 19th-century farm raises questions about its provenance, context, and the motivations of those who may have created it. Yet even skeptics acknowledge the mystery inherent in the stone itself. The granite shows no obvious signs of modern tool marks, and weathering patterns suggest prolonged exposure to natural elements. The rune's depth and pattern of erosion hint at an age that could extend beyond a single century. How then can we reconcile the apparent antiquity of the markings with the timing of the discovery? Is it possible that the stone had been buried, overlooked, and then uncovered by chance, preserving its ancient inscriptions for centuries? Speculative interpretations often venture further, considering the Kensington Runestone as evidence of pre-Columbian exploration far beyond the established historical record. Some theorists suggest that Scandinavian explorers may have journeyed deep into the North American interior, mapping rivers, forests, and settlements, leaving artifacts like this stone as silent witnesses of their travels. Others propose that the inscriptions might contain coded messages, warnings, or records of encounters with native populations, hinting at interactions that history has largely forgotten. The context of the stone adds to its intrigue. Found in a forested clearing, away from major waterways but near a network of smaller rivers, the location would have been both accessible and strategic for travelers relying on waterways for transportation. Could a small Norse expedition have navigated the rivers and plains, venturing far beyond their known settlements in Greenland and Vinland? And if so, why is there so little other evidence to corroborate this journey? The linguistic aspects of the runes themselves invite deep reflection. Some scholars note that the inscriptions contain forms consistent with 14th-century Swedish dialects, yet others highlight anomalies that resemble modern interpretations or hybrids of runic alphabets. Could this indicate a unique regional variation of Norse writing, preserved only in the wilderness of North America? Or does it point to a more mundane explanation, such as the influence of 19th century knowledge on the carver. The ambiguity persists, resisting definitive classification. Even beyond the language, the stone serves as a meditation on human exploration, curiosity, and the desire to leave traces behind. Whether genuine or a later creation, it speaks to the impulse to mark the world, to communicate across time and space, and to assert presence in a vast, often incomprehensible landscape. Its discovery reminds us that artifacts do not merely convey information, they provoke reflection, speculation, and wonder. Standing before the Kensington Runestone, one is struck not by grandeur but by intimacy, a small stone marked by human hands, whispering stories across centuries. Its runes invite us to read, interpret, and question, forcing a confrontation with the limits of knowledge and the gaps in our historical record. Could medieval explorers have ventured farther than we know, leaving traces that we are only beginning to find? Or is the stone a testament to the enduring human fascination with mystery, invention, and the past? The Kensington Runestone exists at the intersection of history, archaeology, and imagination. Like the Baalbek Trilithon, the genetic disc, and the Nazca mummy figures, it challenges assumptions, questions timelines, and provokes inquiry. Whether authentic or symbolic, it encourages us to consider the vast unknowns of human movement and endeavor. And so, as we examine the weathered granite, trace the lines of the runes, and imagine the hands that carved them, we are confronted with an enduring question. What other journeys, discoveries, or encounters remain hidden in the forests, rivers, and plains of our world, waiting for the moment when they can reshape our understanding of history and our place within it? Beyond technical and historical considerations, the stones provoke reflection on the limits of evidence and the nature of mystery itself. How do we differentiate genuine artifacts from skilled reproductions? How do we interpret anomalies that challenge prevailing narratives? And what does it mean when objects like the Ica Stones invite us to reconsider the timeline of knowledge, creativity, and observation? The Ica Stones, like the Kensington Runestone, the Baalbek Trilithon, and the Chachapoya Sarcophagi before them, occupy a liminal space between the known and the unknown. They demand careful observation, thoughtful inquiry, and an acknowledgement of uncertainty. They remind us that history is not merely a static record of dates and events, but a mosaic of human experience, perception, and imagination, some pieces of which remain frustratingly elusive. As we hold these stones in the mind's eye, tracing the lines of dinosaurs, humans, and intricate procedures, we confront the same enduring questions that have accompanied every artifact in this journey. How much do we truly know about our past? What knowledge has been lost or overlooked? And what secrets might still lie buried, waiting to challenge our assumptions and expand the boundaries of understanding? In the end, the Ica Stones endure as both enigma and invitation, a call to observe carefully, to think critically, and to wonder whether they are evidence of a lost civilization, symbolic expressions of imagination, or a combination of both. They leave us with the same open-ended sense of awe that has defined our exploration so far. The past, it seems, is far richer, stranger, and more mysterious than we often imagine, and much remains hidden, waiting to be discovered. From the weathered runes of the Kensington Runestone, which hint at journeys into lands long before their official place in recorded history, our exploration now returns to the arid valleys of Peru, moving from forests and plains to the high desert near the town of Ica. Here lies an artifact collection that has ignited debate, fascination, and controversy for decades. The Ica Stones, hundreds of hand-sized, polished stones, engraved with images that appear to defy historical chronology and conventional understanding of ancient civilizations. Discovered primarily in the 1960s and 1970s, The stones were brought to wider attention by Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquea, a Peruvian physician and amateur archaeologist. The stones vary in size and shape, ranging from simple palm-sized pieces to larger slabs. What unites them is the intricate carvings etched into their surfaces, depictions of humans interacting with dinosaurs, advanced surgical procedures, complex astronomical charts, and scenes of daily life in astonishing detail. The craftsmanship is remarkable, with lines so fine and polished that the imagery remains vivid even decades after excavation. Mainstream archaeology has largely dismissed the Ica Stones as modern forgeries, pointing to the lack of stratigraphic context, the absence of certified excavations, and testimonies from local craftsmen who admitted producing some of the stones in exchange for tourists. Skeptics argue that the engraving's anachronistic content, the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs, for example, cannot be reconciled with the established fossil record. Yet even critics must acknowledge the quality of the carvings, the consistency of style across hundreds of stones, and the sheer creativity evident in their depictions. Could there be more to these stones than mere tourist curiosities? The content of the stones is undeniably provocative. Many depict surgical operations that appear advanced even by modern standards. Open heart surgery, brain procedures, organ transplants, and orthopedic operations rendered with precise attention to anatomical detail. Others show star maps and astronomical symbols, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. The images of humans coexisting with creatures resembling dinosaurs are particularly striking, challenging assumptions about when humans and certain species existed. Even if the stones are not literal historical records, what inspired such visions? And how were the engravings conceived with such meticulous skill? Speculative interpretations abound. Some propose that the stones represent the remnants of an ancient civilization with knowledge lost to time, an advanced culture capable of medicine, astronomy, and perhaps even a different understanding of Earth's prehistoric past. Others suggest that the stones could be symbolic or ritualistic, encoding allegories, cosmological beliefs, or esoteric teachings rather than literal events. Fringe theories go further, positing alien influence or a shared knowledge from a distant past, interpreting the stones as evidence that humanity's timeline may be far more complex than conventional history allows. Even from a purely artistic and technical perspective, the Ica stones are compelling. The precision of the etchings, the smooth polish of the stones, and the diversity of depicted subjects imply a high level of intention and skill. Some researchers note the presence of weathering and mineral deposits within the carvings, suggesting that at least some of the stones are older than the modern forgeries would indicate. Could it be that amidst modern reproductions, some genuine artifacts remain, echoing an ancient knowledge now lost to time? The stones also speak to humanity's enduring fascination with narrative and representation. Each image tells a story, whether of survival, observation, or imagination. They bridge art, science, and mythology, capturing both practical knowledge and speculative vision. Even if they were modern creations, they reflect a collective yearning to explore humanity's past, to imagine worlds beyond the historical record, and to challenge the boundaries of understanding. Geographically, the Ica region itself is significant. Nestled in a desert valley with a history of pre-Columbian settlement, it has long been associated with agriculture, trade, and ceremonial activity. The discovery of the stones here raises questions about how local knowledge, legend, and craftsmanship intersected with curiosity, exploration, and perhaps even deliberate preservation of cultural memory. What inspired these engravings, and what do they tell us about the people who carved or collected them? From the enigmatic Ica stones, which blur the line between imagination, craftsmanship, and the possible knowledge of lost civilizations, our exploration turns inland to the heart of Mexico, to a site where an unexpected artifact would challenge assumptions about contact, chronology, and cultural exchange in pre-Columbian America. Here, in the Toluca Valley near Calixtlahuaca, archaeologists uncovered an object that continues to provoke fascination: the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head, a small, unassuming terracotta figurine that defies the expectations of time and place. The head is modest in size, roughly 3 centimeters tall, yet its presence commands attention. It depicts a figure with distinctly European facial features: a high-bridged nose, deep-set eyes, and coiffure that resembles styles associated with Roman antiquity. The craftsmanship is delicate and lifelike, with careful attention to detail that renders the miniature both striking and unnervingly familiar. Unlike the massive stones, enigmatic discs, or intricately carved Nazca figurines we have encountered, this is a personal artifact, intimate in scale, but vast in implication. The head was discovered in 1933 during excavations at Tecaxic, a pre-Columbian site associated with the Toluca Valley culture, which thrived between the 1st and 7th centuries CE. It was unearthed among indigenous ceramic vessels, burial offerings, and fragments of domestic life, context that suggests it was part of the daily or ritual environment of a society that, according to conventional history, should never have encountered Europeans. Radiocarbon dating of the surrounding strata indicates that the layer containing the head predates the arrival of Columbus and the documented Spanish expeditions by almost a millennium. Mainstream interpretations are cautious, with many scholars arguing for potential contamination, misplacement, or later intrusion. Some suggest the head could have fallen into older soil layers during subsequent agricultural activity or excavation. Others note the possibility of forgery or misattribution, particularly in a period when interest in pre-Columbian artifacts was high and collectors often traded or replicated objects. Yet these explanations struggle to fully reconcile the head's precise stratigraphic context and the care with which it was catalogued and studied by multiple archaeologists over time. Speculative interpretations are compelling. Could the head represent evidence of transoceanic contact long before the age of exploration? Some theorists suggest that Roman or Mediterranean travelers might have reached the Americas, intentionally or accidentally, leaving behind traces such as this miniature artifact. Others propose that it reflects symbolic artistic choices, an idealized European visage rendered by indigenous artisans inspired by imagined or transmitted images. Yet if the latter were the case, where would such precise references have come from, centuries before documented European exploration? The Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head also invites reflection on the complexities of cultural exchange and perception. Could the artifact indicate indirect contact, carried through networks of trade, migration, or observation that spanned continents? Or might it hint at an entirely undocumented chapter of human exploration, one that modern archaeology has only glimpsed in fragments and anomalies? Its small size belies the magnitude of the questions it raises. A tiny terracotta head suddenly becomes a bridge across oceans, eras, and civilizations, challenging the assumptions we often take for granted. The physical characteristics of the head deepen the mystery. Its facial features are unmistakably Mediterranean, yet its manufacturing techniques are consistent with pre-Columbian Mesoamerican ceramics. The clay is local to the Toluca Valley, and the firing methods align with regional traditions, suggesting the object was not imported as a finished product but created on site. If so, how did indigenous artisans acquire knowledge of European physiognomy centuries before documented contact? Could they have based it on imagination, hearsay, or perhaps fragments of foreign influence we have yet to uncover? Even the context of its discovery amplifies the enigma. The Toluca Valley was home to complex societies with their own trade networks, religious practices, and artistic traditions. The presence of the head within a domestic or ceremonial layer indicates it was treated as an object of significance, perhaps revered, perhaps merely admired. Its small size suggests portability, intentional concealment, or personal use. What did the people of Tecaxic see when they looked upon it, and how did it shape their understanding of identity, image, or the world beyond their immediate environment? Like so many artifacts in this journey, from the genetic disc to the Baalbek Trilithon, from the Ica Stones to the Kensington Runestone, the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head occupies a liminal space between the known and the unknown. It raises questions about chronology, contact, and human ingenuity that refuse simple answers. It challenges historians, archaeologists, and lay observers alike to reconsider the boundaries of what is possible in ancient history. Its intimacy is striking. While the trilithons and sarcophagi impress through scale, and the genetic disc and Ica stones astonish through concept, the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head captivates through connection, an encounter with a miniature human likeness that feels startlingly immediate, almost personal. It is a reminder that anomalies need not be monumental to provoke wonder, and that the implications of a small object can ripple through our understanding of history in profound ways. Standing before the questions the head evokes, one must confront the delicate tension between evidence and imagination. Was it created by indigenous artisans inspired by an unknown encounter? Or is it a coincidental reflection of form and symmetry? Does it hint at ancient voyages and interactions long before conventional history records them? Or is it a testament to the human capacity to imagine and replicate the unfamiliar? The Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head, like the artifacts preceding it, leaves us with more questions than answers. Its presence in the Toluca Valley challenges narratives of isolation, of linear progress, and of cultural separation. And as we reflect on its careful features, the local clay, and the epoch it emerges from, we are compelled to wonder what other traces of contact, influence, or lost knowledge remain hidden beneath the soil of our world, quietly waiting to confront our assumptions and expand the boundaries of understanding. From the intimate terracotta likeness of the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head, a small artifact that quietly defies the accepted boundaries of time and contact, our journey moves southward to the tropical landscapes of Central America. In the dense jungles and rolling plains of Costa Rica, another enigma waits, one that communicates not through inscriptions or intricate figurines, but through sheer form and scale. These are the stone spheres of Costa Rica, monumental, near-perfect spheres of granite that continue to puzzle archaeologists, engineers, and explorers alike. Scattered across the Diquís Delta and surrounding regions, these stones vary in size from mere centimeters to massive boulders weighing over 15 tons. They are astonishingly round, some exhibiting a level of geometric precision that has led observers to marvel at the skill required to shape them, even with modern tools. Many are arranged in patterns, lines, clusters, and alignments, hinting at a deliberate placement rather than random deposition. Their discovery in agricultural lands, riverbanks, and near ceremonial sites raises immediate questions about purpose, origin, and meaning. The stones were first noted in the 1930s during land clearing and banana plantation development, though locals had long been aware of their presence. Archaeological studies suggest that they were created by the Diquís culture, which thrived between 300 CE and 1500 CE. Yet despite centuries of human activity in the region, these spheres remained remarkably intact, their polished surfaces resisting erosion, their symmetrical forms unbroken by centuries of weathering. How did artisans achieve such perfection with pre-Columbian technology? Were simple hammering and pecking techniques sufficient? Or might there have been methods lost to history, now beyond reconstruction? Mainstream explanations attribute the spheres to the skillful use of stone tools and labor-intensive shaping. Evidence shows that local granite, abundant in the area, could be gradually chipped and ground into spherical form. Yet even experts admit the precision of some examples is extraordinary. Perfect or near-perfect spheres, with diameters matching within centimeters across distances of hundreds of meters, suggest not only technical skill but careful planning and measurement. How did these ancient sculptors conceptualize shape, proportion, and symmetry on a monumental scale, without compasses, standardized units, or modern machinery? Speculative theories extend further. Some researchers have proposed astronomical or cosmological purposes. Could the spheres mark solstices, lunar cycles, or other celestial events? Others suggest social or political significance, serving as symbols of power, status, or territorial markers within Dike's society. Fringe theories push even further, imagining the spheres as remnants of advanced knowledge, geometric instruction, or ritualistic tools with meanings now lost to time. Some even propose, in line with other anomalous artifacts we have encountered, that they could represent evidence of a forgotten technological or mathematical sophistication among pre-Columbian cultures. The sheer scale of the project is staggering. Consider the logistics. Moving stones weighing multiple tons across uneven terrain without modern machinery, aligning them in clusters or lines, and achieving remarkable geometric consistency. This was clearly a coordinated effort, requiring planning, leadership, and knowledge of materials and landscape. Each sphere, whether small or enormous, reflects countless hours of labor and attention, a silent testament to human determination and ingenuity. What drove such meticulous effort, and what cultural or spiritual significance imbued these rocks with meaning? Beyond engineering, the spheres evoke a sense of mystery and aesthetic contemplation. They are not merely functional, they are objects of deliberate beauty, smooth and symmetrical, their presence commanding attention in otherwise wild terrain. Some lie in alignment with rivers or hills, others in open plains, yet their purpose remains elusive. Were they tools of astronomy, markers of sacred spaces, or symbols of cosmological order? Could the arrangement and size variation encode information we are only beginning to intuit, or were they meant to inspire awe, to connect human presence to the natural and spiritual world? The context of the sphere's discovery also deepens the intrigue. Many were found near burial mounds or ceremonial centers, hinting at ritual significance. Others appear in seemingly isolated locations, suggesting broader landscape planning. Their positioning, combined with consistent spherical perfection, implies not randomness, but intention. And yet, no inscriptions, glyphs, or other records accompany the stones to explain their purpose. The mystery is compounded by the loss of cultural knowledge. The Dike society, like so many pre-Columbian civilizations, left few written records, leaving only artifacts to speak of their achievements and beliefs. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, in this way, echo themes familiar from our previous explorations. The massive trilithons of Baalbek, the Ica Stones' detailed depictions, the tiny but uncanny Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head. They challenge assumptions about scale, capability, and intent. They remind us that human ingenuity has always been capable of remarkable achievements, some of which remain difficult to explain with the evidence at hand. And they illustrate a deeper truth about history itself, that even when civilizations leave behind no written record, their presence, skill, and ambition can endure in stone. As we contemplate these spheres, lying quietly in jungle clearings, arranged along rivers, or standing sentinel over ceremonial sites, we are invited to reflect on human curiosity, precision, and devotion. Each sphere represents a deliberate act, a moment in time in which someone shaped rock to match an idea, a vision, or a purpose that may now be lost. And in their silent, perfect forms, they ask questions that transcend generations. How did the Dike achieve such precision? What meaning did the spheres hold for their creators? And what other knowledge, technique, or ritual remains buried beneath centuries of earth, waiting to be rediscovered. The stone spheres of Costa Rica endure not only as archaeological artifacts, but as enduring enigmas. They challenge us to imagine, to question, and to consider the ingenuity of peoples whose stories have been partially erased by time. They whisper of worlds that existed long before our histories were written, of minds capable of precision, planning, and vision. And as we stand among them, tracing the curves of these monumental spheres with our eyes and our thoughts, we are left with the quiet, persistent wonder that has accompanied every artifact on this journey. What other secrets lie hidden, waiting to challenge our understanding of the ancient world? From the stone spheres of Costa Rica, whose massive perfection and silent geometric presence speak to lost knowledge and careful labor, our journey now moves across continents and into a colder, more industrial landscape, the Ural Mountains of Russia. Here, in the shadow of rugged peaks and dense forests, an extraordinary and perplexing discovery was made. Tiny metal objects so intricate and precise that they seem to defy the technological capacities of the periods in which they were supposedly created. These are the Ural metal micro-objects, artifacts that challenge not only our understanding of metallurgy, but also of ancient craftsmanship and knowledge itself. The Ural micro-objects are astonishing in scale and detail. Often no larger than a grain of rice, they include miniature gears, spheres, tubes, and other shapes resembling mechanical components familiar to modern engineers and watchmakers. Some exhibit interlocking parts, complex rotations, and precise tolerances that would be difficult to produce even with contemporary tools. Found embedded within mineral deposits that geologists estimate to be millions of years old, these tiny artifacts immediately provoke a question that has haunted both scientists and enthusiasts. How could objects of such complexity appear in a geological context far predating human technological development? The objects were discovered intermittently during mining and excavation operations in the Ural Mountains. Local miners reported small metallic fragments embedded in rock layers alongside ancient sediments, often mixed with natural minerals. Early examinations suggested that the metals were alloys unknown in ancient times, exhibiting hardness and resistance that modern metallurgists find remarkable. Some pieces appear machined with such precision that their tolerances would require tools far beyond what early humans are believed to have possessed. Mainstream science approaches the Ural micro-objects with skepticism. Many researchers argue that natural processes could have created formations that mimic artificial geometry, a phenomenon known as pseudo-artifacts. Others suggest contamination, that the objects are modern debris inadvertently introduced into the mineral layers during mining operations. Indeed, the difficulty of confirming the precise age of metal within complex geological strata leaves room for caution. Yet those who have examined the artifacts closely using microscopes, X-ray fluorescence, and metallurgical analysis are struck by the apparent artificiality of their construction. Uniform shapes, sharp edges, and interlocking mechanisms that seem highly unlikely to result from natural mineralization alone. What is particularly striking is the apparent functionality of some of the micro-objects. Certain spheres fit into tubular housings with precision, miniature gears mesh with other components, and tiny shafts rotate within tiny bearings. These are not mere irregularities of crystal growth. They suggest understanding of mechanics, torque, and dimensional engineering. Could these micro-objects have been intended as miniature machines? If so, who created them, and for what purpose? Were they educational tools, experimental devices, or remnants of a civilization whose technical knowledge far exceeded what history credits to ancient humanity? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that the micro-objects are evidence of a lost technological tradition, predating known human history by thousands or even millions of years. Others propose that they are remnants of extraterrestrial visitors, left behind as test pieces, markers, or tools. Certain researchers argue that the artifacts may be proof of a form of ancient nanotechnology, an entirely unexpected level of sophistication in a world that archaeology usually regards as primitive. While these ideas remain controversial, they highlight the extraordinary nature of the discovery. The objects challenge the very timelines of human achievement, metallurgy, and mechanical understanding. Geological analysis complicates the mystery. The metal objects are often found in layers of sedimentary rock that have been geologically dated to tens of millions of years, far earlier than humans or even Homo sapiens could have existed. Critics suggest that misdating, contamination, or human error in collection may explain the anomaly, but the consistent discovery of complex metal fragments within the Ural formations continues to provoke debate. Could there have been a natural process capable of creating structures so geometrically precise, so mechanically coherent, and so uniformly metallic? Or must we consider alternative histories, ones that accommodate the possibility of lost knowledge or intervention beyond what conventional science recognizes? The composition of the objects is another area of fascination. Some specimens contain alloys not previously documented in historical metallurgy, blending metals in proportions that offer extraordinary hardness, corrosion, resistance, and resilience. Others contain metals that suggest processing at temperatures far higher than those typically achieved by ancient blacksmithing. The very materiality of these micro-objects implies a level of sophistication in chemistry and metallurgy that challenges accepted narratives about technological evolution. Could these alloys have been produced intentionally, and if so, what tools or methods might have been used? Beyond the technical and geological considerations, the Ural metal micro-objects raise profound philosophical questions about the history of intelligence and innovation. If a civilization, human or otherwise, once existed with the ability to craft miniature machines with extreme precision, what else might have been achieved? What knowledge, lost to the sweep of time and the erosion of evidence, could remain hidden in the geological record, waiting to be discovered? And how do we reconcile such anomalies with the relatively linear story of technological development presented in textbooks? The object's scale invites further contemplation. Unlike monumental constructions such as the Baalbek Trilithon, or visually striking collections like the Ica Stones, these micro-objects are intimate, almost invisible to the naked eye. Their power lies not in size, but in the precision, complexity, and implications of their design. To observe them is to confront a paradox, that the smallest artifacts can provoke the largest questions. They demand a meticulous eye, a careful hand, and a willingness to think beyond conventional assumptions. The Ural discoveries also evoke a sense of connection to other enigmatic artifacts in our exploration. Like the genetic disk, they intersect biology, design, and information in ways that suggest advanced understanding. Like the Antikythera Mechanism, they suggest mechanical knowledge that precedes accepted timelines. Like the Baalbek Trilithon or Costa Rica's spheres, they provoke questions about human capability, intent, and ambition. And like the Kensington Runestone or Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head, they raise the possibility of encounters, journeys, or achievements lost to time. Ultimately, the Ural metal micro-objects stand as a testament to the limits of our understanding. They are small, silent, and meticulously crafted, yet their existence forces us to consider possibilities that stretch the imagination. Lost civilizations, forgotten technologies, or perhaps natural processes that imitate design with uncanny precision. They ask us to confront what we know, what we assume, and what might remain hidden, invisible to conventional scrutiny. And as we examine these miniature artifacts, tracing the lines of their gears, spheres, and interlocking forms, we are left with a profound sense of wonder. How many other fragments of history, knowledge, or intelligence lie concealed within the strata of the earth, waiting for discovery? What secrets of design, metallurgy, or craftsmanship have been buried, only to emerge in the hands of those willing to see beyond the ordinary? The Ural metal micro-objects remind us that history is not only written in monumental forms or grand narratives, but also in the small, precise, and seemingly inexplicable. Each artifact invites observation, contemplation, and questioning, revealing the tension between what we can measure, what we can verify, and what we can imagine. In their tiny, metallic complexity, they whisper of civilizations, technologies, and mysteries that may stretch far beyond the conventional record, silent, durable, and enduring enigmas embedded in the very rock of the Ural Mountains, waiting to challenge our assumptions about time, ingenuity, and the scope of human, or perhaps pre-human, achievement. From the tiny yet profoundly intricate Ural metal micro-objects, which whisper of technological sophistication long before conventional timelines would allow, our journey continues through the landscapes of human ingenuity and the enigmas it leaves behind. We turn now to a remarkable artifact discovered in the rolling plains of Romania, near the town of Aiud, a seemingly simple object that, upon closer examination, challenges the boundaries of geology, metallurgy, and historical interpretation. This is the Wedge of Aiud, a metallic wedge encased in rock, whose presence invites questions about age, creation, and purpose that remain unresolved to this day. The Wedge of Aiud is modest in size, yet striking in appearance. It measures approximately 15 centimeters in length and tapers to a fine edge, resembling a tool familiar to modern eyes. The wedge is composed of an iron-nickel alloy, unusual in itself for artifacts purported to date back hundreds of thousands or even millions of years, based on geological context. What makes the object truly perplexing is not only its composition, but its condition. The metal retains a level of preservation and hardness that suggests advanced smelting and forging techniques, far surpassing what is thought possible for the prehistoric period in which it is supposedly embedded. The wedge was uncovered during routine geological excavation in 1974, when workers observed a fragment of metallic material protruding from a block of sedimentary rock. Upon extraction, geologists noted that the wedge appeared to have been encased within a concretion of limestone and clay, consistent with layers dated to the Pleistocene epoch. This would place the object at an age far older than any known human civilization capable of producing iron tools. The initial discovery sent ripples through both the scientific and amateur communities, prompting careful study and widespread speculation. Mainstream science approaches the Wedge of Aiud cautiously. Skeptics argue that the object may have been introduced into older sediment through natural geological processes, such as sediment displacement, flooding, or later human activity. They also point to the lack of stratigraphic documentation at the time of discovery, which complicates efforts to confirm its precise age. Yet these explanations, while plausible, struggle to account for the wedge's consistent positioning within the rock, its alloy composition, and the evidence of deliberate shaping and polishing. Could a natural process produce a wedge of such uniformity, metallurgical complexity, and precision? The composition of the wedge is particularly significant. Iron-nickel alloys are not typically associated with prehistoric metallurgy. Smelting techniques capable of producing such alloys require knowledge of temperature control, flux materials, and oxidation prevention that is only documented much later in human history. Analysis of the wedge shows no obvious modern tool marks. Corrosion patterns are consistent with long-term geological encasement, and the density and hardness of the metal suggest advanced forging. Could it be that prehistoric peoples, or some unknown agents, possessed metallurgical knowledge far beyond our current understanding? Beyond its material properties, the wedge invites questions about purpose. At first glance, it resembles a tool, a chisel, wedge, or splitting implement. But its preservation, precision, and context suggest it may not have been an ordinary object. Was it functional, ceremonial, or symbolic? Could it have been part of a larger mechanism, a component in an unknown technology, or even an object of symbolic or ritual significance? The simplicity of its form contrasts sharply with the complexity implied by its manufacture and context, leaving observers to wonder about its intended use and meaning. Speculative interpretations abound. Some theorists propose that the Wedge of Aiud represents evidence of lost human civilizations, capable of advanced metallurgy hundreds of thousands of years ago, far before recognized technological development. Others suggest extraterrestrial involvement, interpreting the object as a fragment of unknown technology embedded in the rock by forces beyond conventional history. More conservative perspectives consider the wedge an anomalous artifact, the product of unusual mineralization, accidental inclusion, or an unrecognized metallurgical process from a later period. The debate continues, fueled by the object's stubborn resistance to simple classification. The geological context enhances the mystery. The sedimentary rock encasing the wedge is estimated to be from the Pleistocene epoch, a period ranging from roughly 2.5 million to 12,000 years ago. This dating places the object in a time frame long before the development of iron smelting, complex societies, or metallurgy as we understand it. How, then, did a metallic wedge, forged with intentionality and precision, come to be embedded in rock from such an ancient layer? Is the dating itself in error, or does the wedge point to a lost chapter in Earth's technological and human history? The artifact also invites reflection on the limits of observation and assumption. Its small size, relative simplicity, and apparent utility belie the profound questions it raises about history, technology, and human, or perhaps non-human, ingenuity. Unlike massive monuments or elaborate machinery, the wedge's modest scale challenges us to recognize that significant evidence can come in unexpected forms, often concealed in plain sight, and that even a small object can disrupt conventional narratives. Beyond the material and geological considerations, the Wedge of Aiud resonates with themes familiar from other anomalies we have explored. Like the Ural metal micro-objects, it challenges assumptions about the timeline of technology and human capability. Like the Baalbek Trilithon, it demonstrates precision and skill that provoke awe. Like the Kensington Runestone or the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head, it exists in tension with accepted historical narratives, compelling observers to reconcile what is known with what seems possible. The wedge's survival through time is itself remarkable. Encased in rock for millennia, it demonstrates both durability and resilience, preserving a record of an enigmatic past that continues to elude conventional understanding. It is a reminder that the Earth itself holds the memory of human or pre-human activity, embedded in layers of rock, clay, and mineral, waiting to be interpreted. And as with so many anomalies, the artifact asks as many questions as it answers. Who made it? Why was it shaped with such precision? How did it come to rest in ancient strata far beyond the expected timeline of metallurgy? Ultimately, the Wedge of Aiud exemplifies the intersection of mystery, science, and imagination. It challenges us to consider alternative histories, to question assumptions, and to explore the boundaries of what might have been. It compels a careful, contemplative examination, a willingness to balance skepticism with curiosity, and a readiness to embrace uncertainty as an essential element of understanding the past. And so, as we observe this small metallic wedge, its sharp lines, polished surfaces, and ancient encasement, we are invited to reflect on the broader implications of its existence. What other technologies, tools, or objects might lie hidden in the earth, preserved against the passage of time, waiting for discovery? How much of human, or perhaps non-human, history has been lost, and how many stories remain buried in the strata of our planet. The Wedge of Aiud stands as a silent, enduring enigma, simple in appearance, yet profound in its capacity to challenge the conventional record of human achievement. It reminds us that the artifacts of the past are not merely objects to be catalogued, but windows into possibilities, capable of expanding the imagination and redefining what we believe history to be. And in this quiet, metallic wedge, we find a compelling invitation to continue looking, questioning, and wondering at what else may still lie hidden, waiting to illuminate the ancient world in ways we have yet to comprehend. From the small yet enigmatic Wedge of Aiud, whose metallic precision and geological context continue to challenge the boundaries of conventional history, our exploration returns to the deserts and quarries of ancient Egypt, where another artifact quietly defies assumptions about knowledge, observation, and technical skill. This is the Turin Papyrus Map, a delicate yet astonishingly detailed document that bridges art, geography, and early scientific understanding. Unfurling the papyrus is like opening a window into the mind of an ancient surveyor. The map measures just over 2 meters in length and is composed of thin, brittle sheets, faded with age yet still legible to those trained to read its intricate lines. It depicts a region near the Egyptian desert quarries, specifically around the Wadi Hammamat, including mountains, rock formations, and the locations of gold mines. But what sets this map apart from other Egyptian documents is its level of technical sophistication. Elevation is indicated with contours, routes are mapped with precise orientation, and symbols denote natural and man-made features with remarkable clarity. The map was discovered in the 19th century and eventually catalogued in the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy, from which it derives its name. Scholars have dated it to the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses IV, around 1150 BCE, making it one of the earliest known topographical maps in human history. Yet, despite its age, the precision and purpose evident in its depiction hint at knowledge far beyond what might be expected from the period, raising questions about measurement, surveying techniques, and the technical acumen of ancient Egyptian engineers. Mainstream interpretations recognize the Turin Papyrus Map as a groundbreaking example of early cartography. It demonstrates not only observation, but calculation. Distances between features are measured, inclines are suggested, and symbols are standardized, all suggesting a methodology that approaches scientific mapping. Scholars note that the map was likely created to guide expeditions to the desert quarries for gold, which were critical to the wealth and ceremonial life of the pharaohs. It represents an applied form of knowledge, a practical tool that enabled complex projects in challenging terrain. Yet the map's level of detail invites deeper intrigue. Elevations are indicated with hachures, short lines that suggest slope and contour, a technique not widely documented elsewhere until millennia later. The orientation is precise, the depiction of geological features remarkably accurate, and the inclusion of minor details, such as small rock outcrops, paths, and even likely sources of water, suggests careful observation over time. How did the mapmaker acquire such precise information? What instruments, methods, or conceptual frameworks guided this early survey? Could it represent an isolated instance of advanced knowledge, or a broader tradition now mostly lost to history? Speculative interpretations have emerged alongside traditional scholarship. Some researchers propose that the map indicates a deeper understanding of geometry, measurement, and land surveying than is usually credited to ancient civilizations. Others suggest that it may encode information beyond its literal topographical content, hidden roots, symbolic meaning, or knowledge of mineral wealth inaccessible to ordinary observers. Fringe theories even speculate that the sophistication of the map hints at influence from forgotten or unknown sources of knowledge, whether ancient advanced cultures or otherworldly inspiration. The papyrus itself conveys an intimacy with the landscape that modern maps often lack. Each line and symbol represents careful observation, a human hand translating desert rock, riverbeds, and quarry sites into legible notation. The mapmaker's eye and mind transformed irregular, harsh terrain into comprehensible, usable guidance. It is both functional and intellectual, blending practical purpose with analytical reasoning. Could the methodologies employed here have influenced subsequent cartography? Or is this a unique artifact, an early peak in observational mapping lost to time? The Turin Papyrus Map also highlights the sophistication of ancient Egyptian society more broadly. The need for accurate resource extraction, labor organization, and logistical planning required not just maps, but systems of knowledge, geometry, surveying, recording, and communication. That such knowledge was deployed with precision over centuries ago reminds us that human ingenuity has long surpassed what is often assumed by modern timelines. Yet even this recognition leaves open questions. To what extent did Egyptian engineers understand measurement relative to the landscape, and how much of this understanding has vanished along with oral traditions, lost tools, and unpublished practices? Even within the bounds of conventional explanation, the map provokes reflection. Its survival over more than 3 millennia, the preservation of symbols, and the clarity of its content speak to a culture deeply invested in accuracy, observation, and the application of knowledge. The map serves as a bridge between human curiosity and practical need, between artistic skill and scientific observation. And yet, as with so many anomalies we have encountered, whether the Ural micro-objects, the Aiud wedge, or the Ica Stones, it raises further questions rather than providing closure. The precision of the Turin Papyrus Map also resonates with artifacts we have explored in earlier sections. Like the Antikythera Mechanism, it represents an advanced understanding of complex systems. Like the Baalbek Trilithon or Costa Rica's stone spheres, it conveys meticulous planning and geometric comprehension. And like the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head or the Wedge of Aiud, it challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient civilizations, reminding us that innovation, observation, and skill can manifest in ways that still astonish. Ultimately, the map is more than a tool. It is a narrative of knowledge, a record of observation, and a testament to the sophistication of those who lived thousands of years before us. It invites us to consider the practical genius of ancient engineers, their ability to measure, analyze, and depict the natural world with clarity and foresight. It also invites us to contemplate what other knowledge, methods, or artifacts might remain hidden in the deserts, mountains, and river valleys of our planet, quietly waiting to expand our understanding of history. As we study the lines, symbols, and contours of the Turin Papyrus Map, we are confronted with both the ingenuity and the mystery of the past. How were these observations gathered? What techniques allowed for such precision? And what other maps, tools, or knowledge might have existed only to vanish with the passage of time? The Turin Papyrus Map endures as a silent witness to human curiosity and ingenuity, bridging observation and understanding in a form both delicate and profound. It is a reminder that history is composed not only of monumental structures and dramatic events, but also of careful study, careful hands, and careful eyes, human efforts that endure, prompting us to wonder, question, and explore. And as with every artifact we have encountered on this journey, it leaves one lingering question. What else lies hidden, quietly waiting to reveal the depth, complexity, and mystery of the ancient world?